Hasty in on first down. May rolling, throwing back. Down the field, intercepted. The second for Amani Hooker ends the ball game. Amani Hooker has become Mr. Interception for Tennessee this year. And Drake May did everything he could, but Tennessee wins.
Yay. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3. The game streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. Live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. On a Titans Monday, we are live at Bridgestone Arena where the Predators take on the LA Kings tonight. It is Star Wars night, which is exciting. Tonight, right here at Bridgestone Arena at 7 o'clock. Ian is here today. Ian?
How you feeling about the win?
Yay. Yay.
All right.
I got to tell you, that was some ugly football, folks. That was some of the worst football I have ever seen. Those teams are terrible, both of them. Their offensive lines, Pro Football Focus ranks the Titans' offensive line 31st. They ranked the Patriots' offensive line 32nd, and they played like it. Drake May threw, what was it, 2 interceptions, 3 interceptions? He kept turning the ball over, and he might have been the best player on the field. I mean, it was, I don't know. So Ian asked the question to start, how did I feel about it? I'm going to tell you right now, I was not pleased by what happened yesterday. I'm just going to be honest with you. Again, I heard Robbie this morning saying, the text line, people are furious. I mean, they're so angry. I'm not going to get on the players or the coach for trying to win. That is their job. That is their job. That is always going to be their job. That is, you never tell players to lose, and players are never going to try to lose. Because, again, it doesn't matter to Tyler Boyd what draft pick the Titans get. It matters to Jared Stillman what draft pick the Titans get. It doesn't matter to Mason Rudolph. He's on a 1-year deal. Mason Rudolph might not be on this team next year. So when it comes to Mason Rudolph, what's in the best interest of Mason Rudolph? Is it to go out there and play the best he can play and try to show people that he's a good quarterback? Or is it to get his teeth kicked in so Jared Stillman's Titans can get the number 1 pick? And you know the answer to that. So I was not pleased. Now, that should probably not surprise anybody because, as I've said for a couple of weeks now, I'm all in on losing. I'm all in on tanking. I'm all in on the number 1 draft choice. I'm all in on not bringing everybody back. I'm all in on all of this. And that win yesterday was truly devastating. Winning the game did very little for you. Again, anybody think they're going to go on the road and beat the Chargers? Anybody think this is going to be the moment that springs the Titans back into contention? Of course not. Nobody thinks that. So then what did this win do for you? And I keep hearing people say, well, the players, they put their soul into this game, and the coaches, and it was a good moment for them, and it was a la-di-freaking-da. Do you remember it all? Around this time last year, the Titans hosted the Carolina Panthers at home. It was Bryce Young versus Will Levis, and Jalen Duncan played left tackle in that game and almost got Will Levis completely smoked by Brian Burns, and somehow the Titans won that game by a touchdown. What'd that do for you? That make Jalen Duncan a good player? Again, you know the answer to that. But again, I'm not going to tell the players, not going to tell the coaches, hey, bad job on losing. So at least there's that. But how they won yesterday probably answers any questions that we should have about the 2024 Tennessee Titans. The Titans are one of the worst teams in the NFL, period. There is no excusing it. There is no, if this hadn't happened, if we'd had another quarter, if the ball had bounced our way, there's no excusing. You're bad. You'd be bad no matter what. Years ago, I asked Jordan Rodgers one time, I said, you like to get in hypothetical situations. I said, what is more likely? Man, this was Nick Saban, Alabama. Or the Sounds beat the Yankees. And he said the Sounds beat the Yankees. It's not even close. I said, what do you mean? He goes, Alabama, you could turn around, hand the ball off every play, and they'd beat Vanderbilt. They do not have to throw the ball one time. And it made sense to me. Right now, the New England Patriots are the worst team in the NFL. And you won at home against the worst team in the NFL by 3 points for one reason. In overtime. For one reason. Anybody want to take a guess at what the one reason the Titans won the game yesterday was? The ball bounced their way. It's crazy, isn't it? After a whole week of talking about, oh, the ball didn't bounce our way. We gave up 52 points in Detroit. And you won because you got every single bounce yesterday. Drake May in a tie game in the fourth quarter, strip sack from behind, ball comes out. The closest guy to the ball was Ramondre Stevenson. He didn't try to pick it up or do what those bozos do where they try to pick it up and they kick it backwards. He dove on the ball. He just didn't get it. You recovered. The ball bounced your way. They're punting to you at the end of the game. Again, all you got to do is pick up a first down. You win. They're punting to you. And Jaquan Jackson fumbles the punt and recovers it. The ball bounced your way. You're driving down to score in overtime. And boy, the Titans, got to give them credit. They treated that overtime like it was the fourth quarter of the Super Bowl. Like, we're going to go 4-minute offense. We're going to bleed the clock. We're going to make them use timeouts. And you fumbled the snap. But you recovered it. And you know why you recovered it? Because the ball bounced your way. There is no arguing that the reason you won yesterday is good fortune of the ball bouncing your way. After all the talk that we've had to have about the ball bouncing your way, that's how you won a game against a real quarterback. Because you won the Miami game on the road, but that wasn't really against a real quarterback. And yet, it took every bounce your way to beat the worst team in the NFL, the one team that has a worse offensive line than you do, at home, by 3 points, in overtime. That's how bad you are. Like, that's how bad you are. And that win for me was soul crushing. Because I know how bad the teams in this league are. This is an unwatchable league. We talked about it on Friday. Just the glut of teams that have 2 wins. Carolina won yesterday. When Carolina won yesterday, I was thinking to myself, please tie. Because I knew that you probably weren't going to lose to the Patriots, but I'm like, okay, if you tie, you have 1 win, and then that would still keep you in position for the number 1 pick. And now you've got a tiebreaker over New England, which is bad because that means that they're more likely to get a number 1 pick than you. Yesterday highlighted how awful you are, and yet you still won, so now you slip to number 9 in the NFL draft. Somebody get Mel Kiper on the phone. Let's ask him what guards are looking good this year, because apparently that's the position you're going to be in now. So there was absolutely nothing positive for the big picture, long-term outlook for the Tennessee Titans by winning yesterday's game. And it's so depressing. It's like even in victory, the Titans lose. So good for Brian Callahan, who I knew was going to make too much of winning that game, and he did yesterday. And congratulations to the players who played hard and whatnot. And I don't question effort with this team. I question accountability with this team. I don't question effort. Again, I don't think Jeffrey Simmons is very accountable, but I do think he plays hard. And I thought he had a good game yesterday. I think these guys play hard. I think Tony Pollard plays hard. I don't think these guys are loafing. Now, I know Colt Anderson said they were loafing on special teams last week and then kind of took it back. But again, I know a football team when they've quit. I know what that looks like. I don't think this team's quit. So good for them. Again, I'm not gonna tell players to lose. I'm not gonna tell coaches to lose. But if you people are really convinced that this team is rebuilding, that's the kind of game you don't want to win. That's the kind of game that costs you dearly when all is said and done. So if you want to admit that this is a rebuild, yesterday was a bad day for the Tennessee Titans. If you want to admit that there is nothing positive that can come of this season on the football field, yesterday was a bad day for the Tennessee Titans. But hey, the ball bounced your way. They had been begging for it. For 2 years, they had been begging for it. Ball, please bounce our way. And let me say this, yesterday, the ball bounced your way. Every time it bounced to you. Every time. And that's how you beat the worst team at home in overtime in the entire National Football League. Congratulations. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number, 615-737-1025 here on the program if you want to weigh in. Ian, I keep forgetting, like when I put these grids together and stuff, I keep forgetting what we have to do after the Titans win a game. We've only done this once this year. Paul Kaharski tried to shame us out of it a couple of weeks ago after the Miami game, and I will never give in to people like Paul Kaharski shaming us for this. But we got some game balls to give away.
Yeah, we do.
So we got to give them away. And I got to tell you, I'm going to say I had some controversial picks. It was tough to do this. And if I was the coach, I might break the Floyd Reese rule. But I'm not doing it today. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106 for the game.
4:40 to go. Tennessee driving. 3rd and goal. Mason Rudolph. Enough time to scan and throw. End zone touchdown. Westbrook-Ikhine, his 4th straight game with a score, and the Titans lead.
Well, you know what? He's going to come across here, and then he's going to work himself back out when Mason Rudolph comes off the front side. So the front side is where they're trying to go. Then you see him just wrap back around here to Rudolph, and Rudolph making a nice throw to the outside. That's where you're getting that coverage away from Gonzalez on the other side, who is locked up with Calvin Ridley.
There you go. NWI, 4 games in a row with touchdowns for Nick Westbrook-Ikhine. By the way, I feel like a genius because during training camp when DeAndre Hopkins got hurt, I was banging the drum saying, hey, because everyone was like, all right, well, now it's time for Traylon Burks to show up. And I was like, whoa. I was like, what about NWI? And D-Mace, I know you're listening right now. I remember you saying, I know what NWI is. They need to put Burks out there. And all the fans said they got to put Burks out there. And Brian Callahan said, we're going to put Burks out there. And I went to every single person on the sideline of practice. And I said, if you had to bet your home on who is going to be more productive between Traylon Burks and DeAndre Hopkins, who would you bet your home on? Ian, I think I asked you this question.
I think we did, yeah.
And every single person on the sideline put their home on NWI. And so the Titans kept playing Burks to begin the season, and he kept dropping the ball and getting hurt. And when he would catch it, he'd get up and he'd be hurt, and he's hurt again. And so NWI gets in the lineup, and all NWI does is produce. So we're giving away game balls. And again, normally we don't give a refresher course every time we do this, but the Titans so rarely win nowadays that I think we can go ahead and do this. And so what happens is we learned this when it was Jared and the GM, and the GM used to give away a game ball the same way the coach will give away game balls after a game. And the rule was 1 on offense, 1 on defense, and 1 on special teams. Every now and then you can give everybody on the team a game ball, but again, I'm not doing that when you beat the New England Patriots at home by 3 points in overtime. Sorry. So we're doing 1 offense, 1 defense, and 1 special teams. Number 1, offense, Nick Westbrook-Ikhine. Now, Tony Pollard only didn't get the game ball because he got a game ball against Miami, and it's like, I don't know how many more game balls we're going to be giving away this year. But there's something about NWI. There's 2 guys on this team who I will cheer for no matter what team they play for. I want them back on the team next year. They have expiring contracts this year. I don't think you win Super Bowls because of them, but these are the guys I want on my team. Nick Westbrook-Ikhine and Dylan Radins. The guys who keep getting pushed down and keep getting crapped on, and they keep bringing guys in, and they keep saying he's no good, and here they go. And NWI has touchdown catches in 4 straight games. And I keep wondering, if NWI went to a good team, like Kansas City, for instance, that has no receivers, I am convinced a guy like Mahomes would find NWI, find his consistency, and wear him out. And when I saw NWI catch that touchdown yesterday, I turned to my dad. I said, who else? Who else? Not the $50 million guy, not the first-round pick that was supposed to replace A.J. Brown. Him. NWI gets a game ball. Number 2, defense. Jeffrey Simmons gets a game ball. And this was hard because Amani Hooker had 2 interceptions, including the game winner. And I don't know how you can have 2 interceptions in a game and not get the game ball. But I'm just telling you, Jeffrey Simmons was the best player on the field on both teams yesterday. By far the best player. Now, I'm not going to sit up here and tell you that, oh, man, Big Jeff has figured it out because he had a game yesterday. Because, again, the Patriots, according to Pro Football Focus, have the 32nd ranked offensive line in the National Football League. They suck. So he should be taking advantage of them. And he did. But Jeffrey Simmons' motor was on 10 yesterday. And the first Hooker interception, Drake May panicked because Simmons was right up in his Kool-Aid. And Simmons did not stop, and Simmons played hurt yesterday. And I've given Simmons a whole lot of crap on this show because he's making $23.5 million, and there is an expectation for what he should be providing this football team. And he has not met that up into this point. But yesterday, you can only play who's in front of you. And yesterday, Jeffrey Simmons played like a Pro Bowler yesterday. He took over the game defensively. So I got to give the game ball to Jeffrey Simmons. And again, I mean no disrespect to Amani Hooker. Just like I mean no disrespect to Tony Pollard for not giving them game balls for what they've done. Then it gets a little tricky. Who on special teams deserves a game ball? I mean, I guess I'm going to give one to Nick Folk, Ian, because he hit the game-winning field goal and he made his extra points and he kicked the ball out of the end zone on kickoffs. And
no mistakes there, yeah.
But I mean, the special teams on this team are
Still rough.
Bad.
Still rough, yeah.
They're so bad. You know, Stonehouse kicks the crap out of it. They take a delay a game so they can move the ball back 5 yards. And Stonehouse still kicks the ball out of the end zone. And Willie Donick is texting me, and he's like, see, it's not the coach. It's Stonehouse is not hitting a good ball, and it's Stonehouse. And I'm like, Willie, they didn't line up correctly to start the game.
First play of the game.
Like, I mean, the coach had to get up there all week
Illegal
and defend
formation.
the special teams coach. The special teams coach had to get up there and give a Jimbo Fisher press conference that looked like an unmitigated disaster. And then on the first play, they can't get lined up on the kickoff. They can't catch the punts. They can't return the punts. They can't stop them from returning the punts. I mean, I don't know what to say. So the only guys that are doing their job on special teams, the snapper is snapping the ball and the kicker is kicking the ball. And so, you know what, Ian? Maybe I should give Morgan Cox the game ball.
Maybe.
I mean, he did snap it. And when they didn't have any snaps go into the ground and they didn't have any. So, again, Nick Folk, I guess, gets a game ball. But I thought it was controversial to go with NWI and Simmons, but they're my game balls, so that's what I'm doing. Pollard, I thought, was awesome. I also thought that not only was Hooker good on defense, I thought Sebastian Joseph Day was really good on defense. Arden Key had a strip sack. I mean, there was a lot of positivity to go around. And that's what should happen when you play the worst team in the entire National Football League. That's what should happen. Unfortunately, you're just one bounce of the ball away from having good games and feeling positive about Simmons and NWI and also being in pole position for the number 1 overall pick in the draft. Phone lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com at 615-737-1025. Chip from Mount Juliet says, do you think Wisenhunt's teams would have beaten this team? And Ian, I guess he's referring to the Patriots when he says that? Or do you think he's talking about the Titans?
The Titans. Titans versus Titans. Wisenhunt. I don't know. That's a good question. I'm not sure.
I'll put it to you like this. Ken Wisenhunt won 3 games when he was the coach of the Titans. He won week 1 at Kansas City. He won week 1 at Tampa Bay in his 2 years. The other game he won was like a week 7 game against Jacksonville at home. And they won the game 16-14. Because with 12 seconds to go, Josh Scobie for Jacksonville was lining up for a 55-yard field goal, and Sammy Hill blocked it. Probably thinking, who the hell is Sammy Hill? Exactly. Sammy Hill blocked the field goal, and the Titans won 16-14 over that terrible Blake Bortles Jacksonville team. And that was the only non-opening week win of the Ken Wisenhunt era of Titan football. I would put this victory on the same level as that. Both games were at home. Both games were decided at the very last second, on the very last, and they won. They blocked a kick, and they won 16-14. Here, they recovered their own fumble on a punt return. I mean, I haven't even touched on the fact that they gave up a last play of the game. Drake May had 48 seconds back there in the pocket and threw it up, and a miracle Ramadre. We haven't even brought that up, but you are the 2014 Titans. The bad news is right now you're picking 9th in the draft. 615-737-1025. More of your phones at 615-737-1025. Plus, the one thing that, like, I get it. But just seemed a little disingenuous. That may not be the right word. It just seemed a little, trying to think of the right way to say this. Sad. We'll get to that next. Stillman & Company, 102.5 The Game.
It's everything that we want to be about, just the program itself, how we want to look, how our team looks. We've had moments of really resilient play, but this was a really, really resilient performance by our guys.
For May, who wants the football? It's down and loose, and eventually the battle continues. Brown says the Titans have it.
Give up a ball at the last second to tie the game and have to go to overtime and then to respond. I thought we did a good job, really for the first time all year, really complimenting each other when something happened. If something bad happened, we picked them up.
Touchdown! Westbrook Akine. The second for Monty Hooker ends the ball game.
Look at me. I needed it bad, man. It was, I needed it.
There you go. That was Brian Callahan. And boy, let me tell you, I was rooting for Brian Callahan. I always say this. I think Brian Callahan's a good man. I think Brian Callahan is a good guy. I think Brian Callahan is the kind of guy that I root for. I can't tell you who you root for, but he's the kind of guy I root for. He's honest. He cares about people. He cares about the players. He wants to be it. God bless him. And I mean this. I hope he makes it. Now, if I own the team, his job security would really all hinge on the next general manager that I bring in here and whether or not he wants to work with Brian Callahan. And I would not put that on the next general manager that, hey, you have to work with Brian Callahan. If he comes in and says, hey, no, I think Brian Callahan's a coach I can work with, then good. And if not, then I'm sorry, but we'll be paying you for a while and enjoy the beach. But we got to talk about something after last. After the game, Brian Callahan was acting as if this game proves that we're on the right path. This game shows. This game means so much. This game. Here was his opening statement after he gave the injury report. This was his opening statement after the game yesterday.
What a definition of what we want our football team to look like and play like when things get tight. Tremendous amount of resilience. We finally got in a position where the way our team plays and the way that they go about their business actually got a chance to pay off for us, which was really great to see. I'm proud of those guys. I love what we're made of in the locker room, and we finally played long enough, hard enough, and well enough to put ourselves in position to win a game. It went a little longer than I was hoping for. Got an extra quarter of football in there, but, man, I'm proud of what those guys put out there and how hard they fought. We had a bunch of guys step up. Obviously, Corey Levin had to come in. Mike Brown had to come in. Those guys played a big role in giving us a chance to win the football game. I thought we ran the ball in that overtime period. That was we imposed our will in that overtime period, which was awesome to see. Running the football down there and taking up almost the entire overtime and not giving them much to work with on the back end. Tony Pollard, just to point out, 154 total yards, didn't practice once this week. He's everything. He's everything that our locker room is about. Proud of him. And then finally, we won the turnover battle. We finally found a way to get our hands on 3 footballs. We only turned it over once. Unfortunately, we had a shot to get a touchdown there, and we turned that ball over. It got tipped up in the air. So a lot of really good things, plenty of things to clean up, but I'd much rather be cleaning them up, feeling good about a win than after a loss. So it was just really good to see our team fight today.
Did they dump Gatorade on him in the locker room after the game? That was a serious question. Come on. And I'm glad this victory over the horrible Patriots at home in overtime, it showed the courage of our boys. Did it. Right. The Patriots haven't won a game in 5 years. The Patriots have not won a meaningful football game since you went into Foxborough before any of us knew what the coronavirus was and ended Tom Brady's career as a Patriot. They're horrible. They're what Mark Howard used to tell me the Patriots were like when he was growing up in Connecticut. They're awful. And it's like, this just shows what our team is made of. And look, I get the coach saying it, and that's fine. But, nobody believes that. And to act as if what happened yesterday was that, I don't expect the coach to get up to the podium after the game and to say, well, it's a bad thing we lost because now we have the number 9 pick instead of the number 1 pick, and Jared's going to get all mad because we're going to draft the guard again. I got it. I understand. But to act like this game was a watershed moment for the Tennessee Titans, bro, this game was one of the single worst football games I have ever seen in my life. I tweeted out yesterday, I had to take a shower after the first half because of how bad it was. And by the way, how bad it was includes you and the way that the Titans got no points before halftime. The way they couldn't get lined up on a kickoff. They couldn't stop a big punt return at the end of the game. Drake May hits a touchdown as time expires out of his ass at the end of and that's what proves what our team is about? Coach, if that's the case, you might want to recalibrate your standards a little bit. And I said this after the Green Bay game. When Will Levis threw a pick 6 and Brian Callahan said, well, Jair Alexander just made a great play. And I said this after Jeffrey Simmons got a penalty that wiped a missed field goal off the board and Green Bay ended up scoring a touchdown. And he said, well, I don't think they should have called that penalty. And I said, I don't know if Brian Callahan has very high standards, very high expectations, that every time there's a penalty, he says, well, I don't think they should have called that. Or every time the quarterback's looking right at the DB, throws him an interception for a touchdown. It's like, well, Jair Alexander's a really good player. Well, the other quarterbacks don't throw the pick sixes like that to him, so maybe your quarterback shouldn't either. And I just said, I'm like, I just don't know if he has very high expectations and standards. Then you win that game like that, and it's like a watershed moment. Like if Clark Lee had acted like that when Vanderbilt beat Alabama, I'd understand it. If he acted like that when they beat Alabama A&M, I probably wouldn't be as on board. I'm just saying. Like, let's stop acting. And I heard people last night being like, this is the moment, the Bobo crew, this is the moment that proved that the Titans process is working. You can see the results. I'm like, really? That's how, really? I used to love it back in the day. I like a coach who's no BS. And Vrabel for a while was that, and then he started BSing a lot. But one of my favorite things was when Peter Laviolette coached the Predators. And Brooks Bratton, who used to work for the team and now works for the team again in the same capacity. But Brooks Bratton goes on the road and he covers the team for the team. And he would be on the road, the Vengen might travel when he was with the Tennessean, but that would be it. And so Laviolette would talk to the media after they'd lose a game, and it was really just Brooks and Adam. And Brooks would ask a question, again, working for the team, and I love Brooks, but Brooks would ask a question like, Coach, I know you guys lost 4-1, but you scored that third period goal there. Do you think that gives you the momentum going into tomorrow night? And Laviolette would just go, no. And that was it. And I used to laugh every time. And it's like, again, I'm happy for Brian Callahan. I root for Brian Callahan. I'm not even going to rip on Brian Callahan for tearing up there yesterday because, look, man, I'm not saying they would have gotten fired if they had lost this game, but he said last week, so Amy's patience can only go on for so long. And they put a lot of work into it. And so congratulations on winning. I'm not going to get on him for that. But we got to stop acting like, and this shows that our locker room has the right juice, that we're made of the right material. Dude, that Patriots team is horrible. And I'm not saying he should have gotten up there and said that this team sucks, so we shouldn't celebrate it at all or anything like that. But I think there's a more measured approach to celebrate that. Maybe not hold a parade after they beat the terrible Patriots, who right now hold the number 1 draft pick, and you had to beat them in overtime at home. That's all I'm saying. To your phone, 615-737-1025, which is our phone number, 615-737-1025. And then I couldn't believe it yesterday. I could not believe it. I jumped out of my chair when something happened yesterday. We'll get to that coming up next, and then we're right to your phones here on Stillman and Company. 1025, 1063 The Game. Got to tell you about Window Nation. I absolutely love Window Nation. We could throw a parade for them because of how much I enjoy Window Nation. And experts say that heating costs are increasing up to 23% this winter. Somebody explain to me how that's going to happen? Well, guess what? It is what it is. And if your windows aren't from Window Nation, your money is literally going out of the window. They have these energy efficient windows. They came to my home. They gave me the demonstration. They showed me the windows. They've got the good, better, best. They'll take care of your budget. And again, they're going to save that money on those utility bills. And they have some of the best insulated windows so that heat stays inside. And right now, get these amazing windows at 50% off. Again, that's 50% off with Window Nation. Plus, you could save even more money with 0% interest for 5 years. So hurry up because the sale ends November 30th. Schedule your fast in-home estimate right now by calling 866-90NATION or by visiting windownation.com. That's 866-90NATION, windownation.com.
Avery inactive today back there in the secondary as well. Pump fake from May, who wants the football. It's down and loose. And eventually the battle continues. Brown says the Titans have it. May got belted from the blind side. It's a turnover.
Just a great play. Look at the hoop that 49 Arden Key turns right here, tight, and then you don't sack the quarterback, sack the football. Go get that arm. It's not just about bringing the quarterback down. It's about sacking the football. Watch that arm right here. Bam, gets that hand down, pulls those arms apart. That ball comes out, and then it's a scramble. For that defense, we just talked about turnovers, creating takeaways. That's how you do it. Tennessee in business.
Ian, you want to know what my reaction was when Arden Key with the strip sack of Drake May and Ramondre Stevenson jumped on it, but he couldn't get it. And then all of a sudden there was a big pile. And then the Titan guys started coming up and they started saying, our ball, our ball, our ball, our ball. And then all of a sudden they said, oh, the Titans have the ball.
What's that?
No, 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 no. Oh, no. Because then I knew the Titans were going to score because they were in scoring range right there. Now, hey, I mean, take nothing for granted because Rudolph threw a ball. The Titans had to have set an NFL record for most times inside the 10-yard line where they don't score any points over the last 2 weeks between what happened at the 1-yard line at Detroit and then the ball off of Chikakonkwo's hands. So maybe you shouldn't take anything for granted. But I think there were like 7 minutes left in the fourth quarter when that happened. And I said, oh, my God, they're going to score a touchdown and they're going to win the game. And I did not see the Drake May, I don't know what you call that, desperation, dagger, whatever you want to, I don't know what to call that. The touchdown as time expired. I didn't see that coming. And so then I knew, I was like, oh my God, they're going to win. And it was the bounce of the ball that went their way as to how they recovered. Again, Ramondre Stevenson was the first one that was there for the football, but it bounced to the Titans. And so, yes, the ball bouncing your way can make a difference against the worst team in the league at home. Michael is up next, has been waiting patiently here on our program. Michael, thank you for calling. Go ahead.
Hey, Jared. Thanks for taking my call. I'm going to issue a challenge to anyone out there listening, anyone who might hear this at some point. We need to find out where this special teams unit ranks among the worst in NFL history. Because I know that the worst that comes to mind probably is that Chargers team who had the best offense and defense, but missed the playoffs because they had the worst special teams in the league.
I believe that was 2010.
By the end of the year, yeah, that was a long time ago. But at some point, once we get to the end of this year, this special teams unit that we got on the Titans might end up being one of, if not the worst special units that for sure I've ever seen, but I don't know how you go about grading special teams in terms of like numerical rankings, but we're obviously at the bottom right now, but in terms of NFL history, I have a feeling we're going to be near the bottom of that too.
You know what I was thinking about yesterday? Did you guys notice, Michael, thank you. Did you guys notice how many times the Fox camera panned to Colt Anderson on the sideline? Like, Ian, before the season started, did you even know what Colt Anderson looked like?
Well, I mean, maybe during training camp, I probably did. Yeah. Because we watch a lot of press conference stuff, but that's only because of our job.
But I mean, again, like every time the special teams did something bad, which was every time the special teams, was out there, whether it was a punt return or a kick return or a punt or a kick, they would pan right away to Colt Anderson on the sideline. And he just had this look. For some reason, the way he wears his hat, I don't understand. He looks like a Mario brother with the way he wears his hat. I can't tell you, like without the mustache, I don't know what it is. But he's standing there on the sideline every time. And it's like you can just see, like, this guy doesn't have any answers. I mean, what are we talking about? And the best was the reaction to the Jaquan Jackson fumble. Oh, my God. It was like he didn't realize what was happening. And Jaquan Jackson fumbled the ball. He's sitting there blowing a bubble with his gum. And I'm like, oh, my God, what a dope. And so I said this to Corey Curtis yesterday. I said, Colt Anderson, and the fact that if they had lost this game, I think Brian Callahan probably would have had to fire him. I mean, you talk about the ball bouncing your way. Ian, if Jaquan Jackson's fumble bounces to the Patriots and the Titans lose, we had a topic on Friday that was, if anything bad happens in special teams, he should get fired. If that happens right there, I don't think Brian Callahan can save his job if they don't win the game. Like at that point, I think there's no option anymore.
I guess, but I struggle blaming the special teams coordinator for a muffed punt.
It's everything. They can't get lined up.
That was not a good look. First play of the game.
They can't anything. And so again, this guy, there is a select group of terrible Titan assistant coaches over the years. And they're really coordinators because outside of Keith Carter with the offensive line and Jason Hodeling, there's probably not a lot of like individual, coaches that we know that are bad. We know the good ones like Jim Washburn, but there's a handful of Titan coaches over the years that are just atrocious. Ray Horton, Chuck Cecil, Norm Chow, like just bad. Like you guys didn't like Rubisky, and Rubisky was 100 times better than these guys. And I think Colt Anderson's in that group. I mean, I really think that he is the special teams, regardless of whether or not it's the coach's fault. I've done this 1,000 times where something doesn't work, and it's like, well, the coach didn't tell him to do that. I know. But as the old man used to say, either you're coaching it or you're allowing it to happen. And I do think there's some truth to that. They can't do anything right. That unit is incompetent. And I think that stems from the coaching. He's up there with Ray Horton and Norm Chow of just terrible Titan assistant coaches. One texter says, I don't think this game proves that the Titans are going in the right direction, but I do believe this has been a very difficult and draining season to this point for Brian Callahan, and I'm sure any win was going to make him get emotional. Sure. I mean, again, they put a lot of effort into this. They put a lot of time into this, and I'm not going to sit here, and I haven't heard anybody else today say this, but I'm not going to sit here and laugh at the fact that Brian Callahan was in tears over beating the Patriots. Like, I'm not going to do that. Though I did send the cut to my buddies that do the show in Boston because I bet they're going to enjoy that one. Which is actually funny because after the Bengals won the division, I remember, you know how it snows in Nashville for like 1 week out of the year? And it shuts the whole city down when it snows? And what I love doing, I'm like addicted to it, although I now have a new home and this may be kind of hard at my new home. But one thing that I used to just be addicted to was shoveling the driveway. I love it. Put on a podcast, get bundled up, and shovel the driveway so I can get out of it. And I remember listening a couple years ago when the Titans had the number 1 seed in the playoffs. I was listening to the Boston show, and they were playing the cuts of Zach Taylor, who after they clinched a playoff spot was in tears because of how far the Bengals had come and they were laughing about saying, this bozo, ha, ha, ha. And yet here's Brian Callahan who's sitting here just, again.
I'm not sure the Patriots looked very well coached yesterday, though.
Boy, I tell you, I think
They have some of their own issues.
That team, what a train wreck. I mean, Mike Vrabel should be the coach of that team. I'm sorry. And again, Vrabel did a lot of things I didn't like. And I think Vrabel's so arrogant that he would do a lot of the things that I didn't like, and he'd continue to do them because that's how Vrabel is. Vrabel should be coaching that team. They suck. But speaking of the Patriots, there is one thing about this Patriot team and where the Titans sit that I'm pretty jealous of. In fact, I'd say I'm super jealous of it. We'll do it next. Stillman and Company on our Titans Monday on 102.5 and 106 for the game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game National Studios, Bridgestone Arena. Preds and Kings tonight, right here at Bridgestone Arena, 7 o'clock, here on the program. I can't get over what Ian did in the update. Playing the Brian Callahan cut of him in tears. You're wrong for that, Ian.
That was not my intention.
So there were two teams yesterday that were two separate but equally terrible teams that went out there and played, and that was their story, the Titans and the Patriots. And the Titans were the ones who got to celebrate as the victors. Again, the coach in tears, the players jumping up and down, everybody happy, everybody celebrating. And now the Titans are in position to pick 9th if the season were to end today in the NFL draft. Think about that. That would be a worse pick than you had last year. Now, again, there's a glut of 2-win teams, and for some reason you're at the back of the line because you've lost to 2 of them or you've beaten 2 of them. So it is what it is. But at the same time, I mean, it's really disheartening that that's the reality for the Titans. The Patriots might actually be worse than the Titans. Like, when I watched the Patriots yesterday, I'm not sure I saw more than 5 players that belonged in the NFL. They have no receivers. Their offensive line is terrible. Again, Pro Football Focus says that the Patriots have the 32nd line in the NFL. Your line's terrible, and it's 31st. Theirs is 32nd. I can't even think, other than Christian Gonzalez, I can't even think of any good players they have on defense. They're terrible. They missed a field goal. I mean, again, the Patriots are awful. These are not the Tom Brady, Bill Belichick Patriots. In fact, they should change the uniforms and go back to the solid blue uniforms that they used to wear with Drew Bledsoe at quarterback, because this team is a disgrace to those Patriot uniforms that they're wearing that Tom Brady and Bill Belichick used to wear. And yet, if I had to pick which organization I would rather be, I'd rather be the Patriots. And I'd rather be the Patriots for one reason. They have Drake May, and you don't. Both teams are terrible. Both teams have been good in the past. Granted, the Patriots were a lot better and for a lot longer. But there have been times in this town where we've been very proud of our Tennessee Titans. It's not as if the Titans are some franchise that is never good and is never going to be good, and it's like one of those colleges, Scarbini State. You're not Rutgers. 3 years ago, you were the number 1 seed in the AFC playoffs. Again, granted, they were better. Both teams have first-year head coaches that I'm not sure I really believe in. I don't know Gerard Mayo that well, but I don't think I had much faith watching him coach that game yesterday. It's bad. And again, it's documented how bad the Patriots are. Terrible offensive line, terrible receivers, so-so on defense. They do have a good punt returner, so I'll give them that. But they have their quarterback. And I never do this thing where I sit back and I say, well, he's going to be the guy. I don't do that. Because until you start beating those guys, until you start beating Lamar Jackson or beating Josh Allen or beating Patrick Mahomes, I'm not going to get up here and say, he's the guy. Like C.J. Stroud's close. But if you saw C.J. Stroud Thursday night, you saw, I'm not sure I'm ready to go there and say that he's Mahomes yet. When we're talking about the elite of the elite. And I have no idea if Drake May will pan out. I'm going to tell you right now, Jaden Daniels is doing as well as somebody can possibly do as a rookie quarterback, and even that. Because I lived through Vince Young, who was rookie of the year and went to the Pro Bowl and had the city on fire, and we know how that played out. So I'm not going to tell you that I'm anointing Drake May as the guy. Drake May is I'm not ready to do that. But I really enjoyed watching Drake May play yesterday. Like there seems to be something there with that kid. Like there were some boneheaded throws. There was some like the first Amani Hooker interception was pure panic on the part of Drake May. He ran the ball well. He's very athletic. And then that play at the end of the game, talk about having guts. I mean, he's got some chutzpah in him. And so I look at these two teams and I see two teams that are going nowhere, that have more holes than you can fill, that have spent too much time living in the past or pretending that there's something they're not. In the case of the Patriots, they spent too much time pretending that they were still the Tom Brady Patriots, when in reality, that brand walked out with Tom. In the case of the Titans, it was the idea that we're going to be the 49ers. We're going to be the Lions. We're going to be whatever it may be. And because of that, both organizations stink. But they have a quarterback. They have a quarterback that you can be excited about if you're a Patriot fan this year and probably into next year and probably throughout next year. And then you have to decide whether or not he's any good. By year 3, he has to kind of show you. But it's hard not to watch that kid and not like what he brings to the table and not wish that the Titans had a guy like that they could bring to the table. And that takes me to the state of the Titans. No disrespect to Will Levis, but I think everybody's kind of made up their mind on him no matter how much the Titans pretend like they haven't. He's not the guy. If they believed in Will Levis, they wouldn't have traded DeAndre Hopkins because they would not have looked at a future 5th-round pick as more important than helping bring the young quarterback along. So they don't. And now because they won yesterday, they're sitting there picking 9th in a draft that most people seem to think, including former NFL general manager Rick Spielman, whose opinion I trust, a draft that has 2 first-round quarterbacks, Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward. I don't know if Shedeur will go number 1 or if Cam will go number 2, but I can promise you this. They're not going to be available by pick number 9. That's probably why, if you watch the offseason Hard Knocks on HBO that feature the New York Giants, there was Joe Shane, the general manager, on the phone offering to trade not only the 6th pick, but next year's number 1 pick to New England in order to move up to 3 to take Drake May. That's how bad they wanted it. Because they probably knew, hey, we're going to suck this year with Daniel Jones at quarterback, and so we're going to have a high first rounder, but there's not going to be a quarterback that's at the level of Drake May. And so, again, you cannot be, in my opinion, you cannot be any more even than you were yesterday with the Patriots. Tie game after the end of regulation, goes right to overtime. And again, we've talked about the bounces, which apparently have been magnified around here, and how they went your way yesterday and you won by 3. But I'd rather be them. I'd rather be the Patriots, who have a young quarterback to build around. Now, they may get him killed behind this offensive line, but they've got a young quarterback to build around. And if the draft were held today, they'd have the 1st pick, which means they'd have the option to draft Travis Hunter. They would have the option to trade out of the pick with one of these 2-win teams that's so desperate to land Shedeur Sanders because the owner wants Shedeur Sanders or the owner wants Cam Ward, that they'll give you 2 first-round picks, 3 second-round picks, and a future 4th in order to move all the way up from 7 to number 1 to draft Cam Ward. And that's how you can rebuild a team. I have no faith in Robert Kraft. Again, just like with the Titans, Amy gets mad about John Robinson and fires him. And look, John Robinson got arrogant. He wasn't perfect. Mike Vrabel doubled down on it's all about me, and he got fired. And now it's Amy who's got the egg on her face while her coach breaks down in tears at the podium after they barely beat the worst team in the league in overtime. It's not a fun place to be. The Patriots are the same way. Belichick got a stick up his ass thinking that he was too good for anybody, including Brady. Brady got upset about the fact that the Patriots wouldn't commit to him long term. Robert Kraft was torn between the two, felt like he had to side with Belichick. Then he got mad at Belichick because he sided with Belichick and Tom won the Super Bowl somewhere else. And so he fires Belichick, but because Kraft wants to do it his way and be his people, he makes this guy, Gerard Mayo, the coach. I don't know why he would do that, but he did, instead of having Mike Vrabel be there. They're not good places to be. Neither place. Terrible offensive lines. But I'd rather be the Patriots. Because that quarterback, that is a potential high, like that is a high-level prospect at quarterback that they have. And I LOL at all of the people. Ian, do you remember this during the draft when we would do those simulations? And we had to have the discussion because, we do the Pro Football Focus mock draft simulator, and it would pick the first 6 guys.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, okay, you're on the clock at 7. All right, who are you taking? If this is the case, if Alt's gone, but Harrison is there, and do you take this guy? Do you take that? What do you do? And there was one in particular where Drake May kept falling to the Titans. Drake May or Jaden Daniels, I can't remember, but it ended up being Drake May. And Tim Hasselbeck said on the midday show that if Drake May falls to you at 7, you take him. You take them and then you move on. And the amount of people that texted in or called in and they just, why would you do that when you have Will Levis? I had to laugh out loud. Drake May is 22. Will Levis is 25. When the going gets tough, Will Levis throws the ball to the other team. Drake May, when the going gets tough, he gets kicked in the teeth. He gets right back up. And I thought that touchdown pass at the end of the game, that told me, yo, this kid, he's got some juice. So I'd rather be the Patriots than be the Titans because I don't know who the quarterback's going to be next year. I don't know where the path to getting a good quarterback is right now that you're picking ninth. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number, 615-737-1025. I saw that there is a new thing. It's called election anxiety, I guess. People that are all nervous about the election or whatever. I have a similar kind of anxiety. It's called draft anxiety. And boy, was it on full display at the end of yesterday, and I am going to tell you why, and do not lecture me otherwise. We'll get to it next. Stillman and Company, 102.5 The Game.
play. Hold the ball, you can scramble, you can do whatever you want here because you got one play.
Drake May for the game. Patting the ball. May scanning. Loads of time. He'll roll. He'll run. A sidestep. He's ready to throw. Nobody's open. Into the end zone. Touchdown. Oh my goodness. Stevenson. And May with an absolute jewel of an effort. Now the extra point. What a play.
Sometimes you scramble around, you say a prayer, and you throw it up, and it's answered. Stevenson with the touchdown.
I jumped out of my chair when I saw that. Granted, I was rooting for the Titans to lose and didn't think that was going to happen. And when they threw that, I was like, ah! By the way, I do not begrudge the Patriots for kicking the extra point there. Because, quite frankly, I didn't think the Titans were going to go down the field and score. And they didn't even go down the field and score a touchdown. So I actually don't have a problem with that, even though in other situations I would have been like, go for two. But the Patriot offensive line so bad and Jeffrey Simmons was so good yesterday, I don't have a problem with that either. So I got to get on some people. Because yesterday after the game, there were a lot of people that were kind of shaming Titan fans because I looked at this and thought, oh, God, how far down are they going to fall? Carolina had already beaten the Saints, which meant if you tied, all I wanted was a field goal from the Patriots. I mean, I would have loved a touchdown at the end of the game, but all you had to have was a field goal, and you'd have the number one pick today. Instead, you have the 9th pick. 9th. In a draft that has 2 quarterbacks. And there were a lot of people that were kind of finger-wagging the Titan fans. And they were saying, I mean, you sitting about drafting. This isn't about the number 1 pick. I heard Karski this morning. He was on the morning show. He was like, I think you better be more excited about a win in November than worried about the draft in April. Well, I'm sorry, Paul, but September and October have been so bad, there's nothing to look forward to in November and December. And the team told us as much last week when they traded away guys because they're having a fire sale, because they know they're not very good. So the only thing that we really have to look forward to is the draft. This time last year, we were talking about, oh, they're going to have the $100 million in cap space. And apparently that doesn't even matter. It's the draft. And the difference between the 1st pick and the 9th pick is monumental. And the amount of people that say, hey, there are still plenty of losses left on the Titans schedule. I would agree. They're going to lose this Sunday. They're probably going to lose the next Sunday. They'll lose a lot of Sundays from now. And I've made my peace with it. I'm okay with it. When they decided to go into the season without a right tackle, I had a pretty good idea what was about to come. The problem is there's a lot of losses still on the Patriots schedule too. There's a lot of losses on Carolina's schedule, a lot of losses on the Saints schedule, a lot of losses on the Giants schedule. These teams all freaking blow. Every single one of them. And as we learned yesterday, it's not like you suck more than the Patriots or the Patriots suck more than you. You guys stink the same. It was an overtime game. This was incredibly consequential. I mean, this loss yesterday, or I say loss, this win yesterday is the single worst thing that could have happened to this organization because of the drop from 1 to 9. I had people that were like, come back to me in January about this. No, I played this game last year. When I said, you know what, it was a meaningless win, but it was a good thing that Will Levis went on the road and had the 2-minute drill against Miami, and that's something that we can get behind and be encouraged by, and the team can get confidence in him, and the organization can have faith in him, and what's that doing for you now? You beat Carolina last year by a touchdown. Jalen Duncan started at left tackle in that game. What's that done for Jalen Duncan? The answer is nothing. This game meant nothing for the Titans, except it just absolutely tanks where they sit in the draft. And I went and did the math during the break. The difference between the 1st pick and the 9th pick in terms of value is the 5th pick in the draft. So if you were calling up the team with the first pick and you had the 9th pick and you said, hey, I'd like to trade from 9 to 1, in order to make it a quote unquote fair trade according to the charts, you'd also have to have the 5th overall pick in order to do that. Again, we talked about the Giants got turned down trying to go from 6 to 3, and they offered next year's first round pick, which may end up being 4th. And they turned it down because New England wanted to take the quarterback. Again, doing the math, if the Titans were to want to trade from 9 to 1, they would have to offer the 9th pick. They would have to offer next year's first round pick. They would have to offer this year's second round pick. They would have to offer this year's 4th round pick. And they would have to offer next year's second round pick and probably next year's 3rd in order to make the math add up. Well, you traded away DeAndre Hopkins, who might help you win a game. You traded away DeAndre Hopkins and Ernest Jones for a 5th round pick and a 4th round pick. You just lost 2 first round picks yesterday by winning the game. And again, I'm not telling the coaches or the players to give up. I'm not saying, look, they're doing their jobs. I understand that. But stop finger wagging me. Stop telling me that this wasn't a massive loss for the Titans to go from 1 to 9. And again, the thing about the first pick is it gives you options. I've heard people say, well, who cares if you have the first pick in the draft? This isn't a good quarterback draft anyways. They told us 2017 wasn't a good quarterback draft either, and it produced Patrick Mahomes. So again, let's be careful. But having the first overall pick gives you options. It gives you the option to take the best player on the board. If the best player on the board is Travis Hunter and you think, oh my God, this guy as a receiver is going to be a superstar. If you think he's going to be Calvin Johnson, you can take it. If the best player on the board is a pass rusher, you can take him. Or you can decide, you know what, he's good, but he's not that good. You can trade the pick. We saw John Robinson literally rebuild the Titans by trading away the first pick. You don't get 3 second-round picks, including Derrick Henry and an extra. You don't get Jack Conklin, Corey Davis, Derrick Henry, and Jonnu Smith if you're trading away the 9th pick. And again, now New England has the tiebreaker on you because you won the game. This was devastating yesterday to win this game. And again, I'm not going to begrudge the coaches and I'm not going to begrudge the players because they're doing their jobs. But the people out in media land that have just been finger wagging the fans saying, don't worry about the draft and this is more important than the draft and this is, no, it's not. This was a murderous loss. If New England on Christmas Eve, or maybe it was Christmas Day, I can't even remember. I can't even remember what day I flew to say it. I think it was Christmas Eve. If New England on Christmas Eve last year doesn't go and win a meaningless game against Denver, Jaden Daniels is playing quarterback for them yesterday. And again, I like Drake May, but Jaden Daniels has done more. This stuff matters. Like, if you want to be good, this is what matters. And yesterday was bad. Like, this was bad. And again, good for the players and the coaches and everything else, but that's a huge value that was lost yesterday by just a little bounce here and a little bounce there. It's like, if I have to sit through this horrible season, can I at least be excited about getting the number 1 pick? And it seems like if the Titans are going to win games against the bad teams like Miami and New England, then the answer is no. 615-737-1025 or to your phone, 615-737-1025. Hey, tune into 94.9 The Fan tonight for Vandy men's basketball. The season starts today. The Commodores take on Maryland Eastern Shore. I'm guessing that's on the Eastern Shore of Maryland. At Memorial Gym. Tip-off is at 7 o'clock. Pre-game begins at 6:30. Coverage also available on the 94.9 The Fan app and at 949thefan.com.
tremendous resilience in that game. Tremendous. I'm proud of everybody in here. You guys played your ass off. 3 turnovers on defense. So let's build on this. You guys are, I'll tell you every week, I love this team, man. I love you guys. I love the way you fight. I love the way you play. Victory!
Hey, man, that's a start. Let's keep stacking. Stay together, man. Keep fighting to the end. Family on 3, 1, 2, 3.
All right, great job, guys. And if you see Jason's mom over there, she's got the orange slices and the Capri Suns before you load up the minivan to go on with your life. Wow! Brian Callahan, I love this team. Let me say this with all seriousness. I hate this team. Like, this team is as bad, if not worse, than the Kid Whizzin' on Titans that were the worst Titan team, again, the gold standard of the Dark Ages. And I know it's convenient to make it John Robinson's fault. That's what I guess is a coping mechanism that people seem to like. But again, it took you overtime at home against a team that right now, if the draft were held today, would have the number 1 pick. Whoa. Yay! Unbelievable. And then to get scolded with the, hey, let's build on this. No. Do not win too many games. If you win too many games, you'll pick 11th, and then you'll draft a guard, and then I'll be told that this guard is the next best thing. And again, like, somebody tweeted me when I said that, hey, I'd rather be the Patriots than the Titans because the Patriots have Drake May. And this is somebody tweeted me and said, well, we have Will Levis, and we just have to develop Will Levis. Really? Really? Like, seriously? We have to develop Will Levis? Boys, that ship sailed. I don't even know who the quarterback's going to be next year. If you're picking 9th, it's not going to be Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward. So if you're picking 9th, like Daniel Jones, Kyler keeps winning in Arizona. He might not be a trade option. Geno Smith? I watched Geno Smith yesterday. He stinks. How about Geno Smith? That's what you might be looking at. And I'm not interested in that. To sit through this horrendous season, the reward is that you get to pick. But instead, it's, let's keep building on this. Yay! So we can take a run-stuffing DT. Jim Wyatt put this out yesterday. This is how stupid the Titans are. And this is how disappointing Titan fans can buy into some narrative sometimes. Again, my biggest issue with Tavondre Sweat is that he never, ever, ever pressures the quarterback. And look, he's a great run stuffer because he's so fat and he takes on 2 guys. That's great. But you have to pressure the quarterback to be worth the 38th pick. If not, you should have been drafted in the 4th round. If not, you can be signed for $7 million as a free agent, and we can get somebody in there that stuffs the DT. Jim Wyatt put out a tweet this morning that is kind of like, and if you've seen some of these, like the internal polls that the campaigns have that are apparently better polls than the public polls that we see.
Lots of polls out there.
Yeah, but then they have our internal polls show because they have more money and more resources and whatever. So Jim Wyatt puts out, after film review, the Titans are credited with 26 QB pressures on Sunday versus the Patriots. Where do you think Jim Wyatt got that from? The coaches. The coaches watched the tape, broke down the pressures, and wanted it out there so that instead of before Pro Football Focus or ESPN or somebody else can get out there and say this is what happened, they want you to know what their numbers say. After film review, the Titans had 26 pressures. Yay! Against the 32nd ranked offensive line in the NFL. Simmons, 7. Landry, 6. Key, 5. Joseph Day, 3. Hooker, 1. Gibbons, 1. Lynch, 1. Brown, 1. Murray, 1. Did you notice who didn't get one yesterday? The 38th pick. So I have to sit through this season with you guys telling me that the guard they drafted who sucks is worth it, and the defensive tackle they drafted who, again, doesn't pressure the quarterback even against the worst offensive line in the NFL is worth it. And now I've got to be picking 9th, and I'm the bad fan for being upset about that. Phone lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. You guys have been holding very patiently. Adam in Portland is going to kick us off this hour. Adam, thank you for calling. Go ahead.
All right. So I want to give you your flowers on NWI. You called him above Burks before anybody I heard. Same thing for Tony Pollard. You said he's the only offensive player we got. Same thing with Levis and Ridley. I'm going to say all that because I'm fixing to scold you.
And Nicholas T. Ferrer, a.k.a.
PT.
I'm not going to – no way, dude. No way.
You
All
know,
right,
Adam, if you're going to give me credit for all those other, you got to give me credit for PT. Because everybody pushed back and said, no, Jared. And I said, no, he stinks.
Yeah, well, I'm giving you those three. But here's where I think you're dead, because you're so wrong about 97% of it. That's 3%. You're so wrong about 97%. You can't sit there and play both sides of this, Jared. You can't go, I think they should fire everybody. Also, I think they should lose. And also, I think the coach is allowed to go and celebrate and have a good time and then turn around and kind of make fun of him for a celebrate. Like, that's good for them. They're supposed to go in there and try to win games. I don't necessarily want the number one pick. We don't have to have that. As a fan, I don't have to have that. Your favorite quarterback in the world, Sam Darnold, was a free agent. Let's get a free agent quarterback. We don't have to have the top pick. That's all right. I want to see them try to win football games. I do. Like, was I sitting there holding my breath going, please don't catch that Drake May ball? Not necessarily. Like, it's either way. But also, it's November. It's the beginning of November. I don't want to sit here and watch losing football for the next 2 months. And T'Vondre Sweat does not have to hit the quarterback. Who
yes,
said
he does.
anything about him hitting the quarterback at 38, Jared? Nobody said that.
Yes, they did.
They said he's going to get in there and he's going to be the next Warren Sapp and Terry. No, they were just like, this is a great player in this fight. I think he is a good player. But you said before
zero pressures. Lynch. Who is Lynch? Who is Lynch, Adam? Lynch had a pressure yesterday. Who is Lynch?
I understand.
Ian, do you know who Lynch is?
Yes, I do.
What's his first name?
It starts with a J.
I think it's James. But Adam doesn't even, nobody knows he had a pressure and Big Boy can't get a pressure.
I understand that he does not hit the quarterback, but he does things on the field. This is the point. I'll leave you alone. I'll let you.
Nick Folk does things on the field too. You want to use the 38th pick on a kicker?
Maybe he's the best special teams player we have, so possibly he's putting up points. Here's the thing, though.
Great.
We don't have to say we're all in to give up on the season right now. Like, there's still a lot of football. And I know we're 2-6, and I know a million things have to happen. We've seen a million things happen. Maybe Callahan has figured something out.
Adam!
Because he hasn't fired his buddy. Because he hasn't fired his buddy, I was calling for his job a week ago. I get that. But at the same time, I'm happy to see him teared up, dude. I want him to care about it.
Adam,
like I do,
give me a percent chance you think the Titans have of making the playoffs.
Like 10%.
Oh, God, Adam. Oh, my God. Oh, God. These jokes, I don't even need to work. This is the Feinbaum show. Thank you, Adam. This is the fine. I can just go to the next guy. Legend is up next in Alabama. Hello, Legend. Hey, Paul, I'll tell you right now, I sat there and I did like that. That's what he's talking about. Maybe Callahan's got it figured out. They beat the worst team in the league right now at home by 3 points in overtime. You suck. Like, what are we doing? What are we doing here? Oh, my God. I love this. And I love, too, this whole made-up thing that, like, oh, the 38th pick doesn't need to sack the quarterback. 38th pick, he doesn't need to sack the quarterback. I mean, if he's a running back, he doesn't need to sack the quarterback. But pretty much any other position you draft, 38 needs to be able to sack the quarterback. A defensive lineman and Lynch gets more pressures. Gibbons sucks. I mean, I'm watching Gibbons out there yesterday. Like, remember, Ian, during training camp when I kept watching Skoronski get beat? And I'm like, I don't think he's doing very well. And then Brian Callahan would have a press conference and he'd be asked about how Peter looks. And he would say, oh, yeah, Peter looks great. Peter looks awesome. You know, he's doing great. And we'll be like, well, coach says he's doing well. And I'm like, I don't see that. I mean, I'm sorry. Like, maybe he knows more than I do, but I don't see it. I don't. So Gibbons, I'm watching out there in the game yesterday, and I like Jerome Baker, the guy they traded for. And I'm thinking to myself, why is Gibbons out there? It's like playing with 10 guys, when Gibbons is on the field. And then today in the press conference, Brian Callahan got up there and said that Gibbons is making it hard for them to put Jerome Baker on the field.
Dr. Gibby.
I'm like, I don't think we're watching the same games. Gibbons is terrible. And he got a pressure yesterday.
Smart player.
But not Sweat. Can't get a pressure. Not one pressure. And again, this is the internal polling that the Titans coaches dug up. And they can't have a pressure for the big boy. Unbelievable. All right, more of your phones next. 615-737-1025. Plus, I do owe Brian Callahan an apology. I do owe it, and we will do it next here on the program, and then we're right to your phones. This week's Nationals Best Deal is from Black Rabbit. Black Rabbit is a great spot to enjoy some Nashville vibes. With craft cocktails, delicious food, and live music just steps from iconic venues, it is perfect for a night out. Snagging a $50 gift card for only $25 is a fantastic way to experience Black Rabbit. Get yours now at thegamenashville.com/deals while supplies last.
You've been consistent in that when Will's healthy, you want him back in there and stay in there. I'm assuming that's still your plan?
Yep, still is. That hasn't changed.
Think this could be the week, or is it still TBD?
I'm hopeful that this is the week. I think we'll see how he feels today. Should feel good, and then we'll increase the workload and let it go and see how he responds throughout the week. But I'm hopeful that this is gives him a chance to go play.
I owe Brian Callahan and the Titans an apology, and I am man enough to apologize, so I am going to do that. Because 3 weeks ago, when Will Levis was added to the injury report before the Bills game and Trevor Siemian was called up off the practice squad, I said, I said, Levis went to the media and said, oh, yeah, my shoulder's hurt, so I couldn't make that throw in the Colts game. And I think the coaching staff said, oh, you think that? Well, you need to sit on the bench. And when Ian Rappaport was saying multiple weeks, I'm like, oh, they told him. They said, no, we're going to make sure you're healthy. Wink, wink. And then I figured, hey, they'll sit him the 2 games that they knew they were going to lose, and they'll get him ready for the Patriots game to try to see if they can get him some confidence and go for that. Go from there. And I got to be honest. I said, if he doesn't play against the Patriots, then I'll know he's really hurt and that was just a conspiracy theory. And I am here to tell you that clearly by not playing yesterday, it was just a conspiracy theory. He is actually hurt. And so I thought they were lying. I voiced my opinion, and clearly they weren't lying. So I owe them an apology, and I'm man enough to do it. So I am sorry about that. Let's go to your phones. Titans and Truth, Chris is up next here on our program. Chris, thank you for calling and thank you for waiting. Go ahead.
What's up, Jared? How you doing?
I would be doing better if they had lost yesterday, but I'm okay.
And you know what? I am 1,000,000% with you on this. Winning this game was really a loss. Again, you had the number 2 spot. If you had lost that game, which they really deserved to lose that game because that was probably some of the most boring football I've ever seen until about the late part of the second half, you would have had the number 1 spot. You would have the inside track. I know there's a lot of people saying, yay, they won. Even my wife, your sports cousin in Christ, has even said, it's for team morale. And I was like, I get that. But the season is over. We all know this. We all know Levis is the guy. And it's like, people want to get built up on false hope. Now, a lot of you are thinking, oh, this is it. We're going to turn it around. We're going to stack some wins. Do you see another win the rest of the season? And I'm not apologizing to anybody out there. It's more to be realistic. It's time. You got to be realistic with yourself. And the truth of the matter is, a loss would have been a victory. Because Carolina lose, you have the inside track. Now you got to wait for these other teams to have their bye week and hope that they lose, that they win a game or 2. I don't know if any of those teams are going to win games down the stretch.
And on top of it, you've lost the tiebreakers now by winning to Miami and New England, who are absolutely going to be in the mix.
Absolutely. And catching them is going to be hard. So now it's like, Titan fans out there, congratulations. You've lost out on Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders. Or Travis Hunter even, if Will Levis happened to show something. And now we're going to have to settle for maybe the 3rd best tackle, possibly, if they do it right.
It'll be a guard. Chris, thank you for your call. I mean, again, he's right. He's right. This was a devastating win for the Titans yesterday. A devastating win. Because, again, I've never heard of a team trading the 9th pick and turning it into 7 picks that launch them for the future.
Has that ever been used before? A devastating win?
Well,
have we ever heard of that? I think this is a first.
So Dave McGinnis actually coached a devastating win when he was the coach of the Arizona Cardinals. It was the last game of the year kind of thing. In fact, I think Dave McGinnis might have gotten fired after they won this game. And I don't think it was that they won this game that got Dave McGinnis fired, but I think he was probably getting fired anyways. And Arizona won a meaningless game, and that kept them from Eli Manning. Now, they ended up drafting Larry Fitzgerald, and obviously that worked out for them, but they would have then had the Eli Manning pick at number 1 had they lost their last game of the year. I mean, I think there were a lot of people in Houston, and obviously it's worked out because Stroud looks to be better than Bryce Young, But I think there were a lot of people in Houston that thought that they had a devastating win when they hit that Hail Mary and 2-point conversion against the Colts at the end of the 2022 season. But yes, this is a devastating win. Let's go to Tristan, who's up next here on our program. Has been waiting patiently. Tristan, thank you for calling. Thank you for waiting, and go ahead.
Thank you for my call. I think the offensive line has improved. A team that has the most sacks allowed is Cleveland Browns. So that's one area that I've seen improvement on. And I think we'll get the number 1 overall draft pick or number 2 this year. Unlike I think New England wins one more game, New York Jets, and Miami Dolphins, Cleveland Browns, Cincinnati Bengals, Jacksonville Jaguars. I think and New York Giants and Carolina Panthers.
What's the point, Tristan?
I think Shedeur Sanders is not that great of a quarterback. Cam Ward is not that great, and we can trade down for number 1 to get draft capital.
You're not going to, Tristan, and I appreciate your call. You're not going to be number 1. Like you just cost yourself any shot of the number 1 pick yesterday. That's how bad that Patriot team is. And these other teams in the league, like they're all equally as bad. Carolina is as bad as you. New Orleans is as bad as you. The Giants are as bad as you. You're not worse than them. They're all bad. But because you get to play Jacksonville twice, you'll win one of those games. Did you guys watch the end of the Philly-Jacksonville game yesterday? Ian, did you watch the end of the Philly-Jacksonville game yesterday?
Not totally. I saw Jacksonville made a quick turnaround. I'm not exactly sure how they got back into it so quickly, but
let me tell you something. This Trevor Lawrence is so freaking bad. I mean, he is so freaking bad. They drove down the field with the chance to tie the game at the end, and I don't think he completed a pass. And they still got a first down, and they got into scoring range because of a pass interference call, and then he throws the stupidest interception in the end zone. He sucks. And they have got to fire the coach there in order to see if they can save him because he's so bad right now. But the point I guess I'm making here is, like, you're going to win. Like, you're going to beat one of these games against Jacksonville, and I think you'll pull another one out of your ass, and that'll get you the 5th or 6th pick. And in a draft that's not very deep, do not want the 5th or 6th. I want the first pick. I want the 1st or the 2nd pick. And again, a devastating win. That'll cost you the 1st or 2nd pick. Let's go to Don, who's up next here on the program. Thank you for calling. Don, thank you for waiting. Go ahead.
Hey, love your show, man. Pollard, I never knew about him. How did Jerry Jones not re-sign this guy is my first question. Second is, since the season's pretty bad, could the Titans expect a first rounder and maybe another round if they traded him tomorrow?
Tony Pollard?
Yeah.
No. Again, last year, thank you for the call, Don. Last year, you tried to reportedly, I don't want anybody to tell me this isn't what happened, but, it's the Ravens have gone on the record and said they thought they had a deal for Derrick Henry, which was a 4th-round pick. Now, Rand has denied that, but it seems hard to believe that the Ravens would lie about that. And so I guess the point I'm making here is if Derrick Henry's worth a 4th-round pick, Tony Pollard is not worth a 1st-round pick. If Tony Pollard was worth the 1st-round pick, Dallas would have tagged him and traded him, and he's not. So I like Tony Pollard too, but no, he's not worth the 1st-round pick. Sorry. 615-737-1025 is the phone number if you want to weigh in. 615-737-1025. I'll get some of your phones. Plus, I heard something today from a media member in town, and I've heard a similar sentiment that I think is completely unfair and completely unfair to Titan fans. And we'll get to it next. It's Stillman and Company, 1025 The Game. Stillman and Company, 1025, 1063 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville Studios, Bridgestone Arena. Preds and Kings tonight for a little Monday night hockey. Do they have any games tomorrow, Ian, on a Tuesday? Or are they just avoiding election completely for hockey?
I'm not aware of that. I assume they have games on Tuesday. I haven't seen anything like, oh, we're not playing any games on Tuesday. No, there's plenty. I'm not sure why it's on a Monday tonight. Plenty of games tomorrow.
Interesting. Well, it's a big one for the Predators tonight, which we're very excited about. I got a bone to pick. And I heard this today, and I don't want to say I was offended because I wasn't offended. But I do think I'm a little insulted. And I feel like Titan fans have been a little insulted. You know, I think the media in this town has been somewhat divided along the lines of the people that tell the truth about the Titans and the people who pump sunshine for the Titans. And I think there are some people that work that line. You know, sometimes they tell the truth, sometimes they pump sunshine. But for the most part, I think if you want to hear sunshine, you know where to go. If you want to hear the truth, you also know where to go. So I heard somebody today who doesn't know what the pain of being a Titan fan is like because they're not a Titan fan. They didn't play for the Titans. And I heard today they said the Titan fans that are upset that the team won yesterday are idiots. And I heard that and I thought to myself, really? You're going to sit there and I bet you if you took a blind poll of Titan fans, I would say the stadium, but don't know that there were that many there. But if you took a poll and you said, do you want to win this game or do you not want to win this game? I think there would be a lot of Titan fans that would have voted to not win this game. I can't tell you it would have been more than there were that wanted to win it. And I'm also not calling you an idiot if you want to watch the Titans win. I get it. I understand. But I think the only gain is accomplished if you go through a little pain. And the truth is the Titans tried to pump sunshine and pretend they were something they weren't and pretend that players who suck didn't and all these things. And that's what's gotten you to the worst team in the league. The blind faith and let Rand cook. That's what has enabled you to be the worst team in the league. And yet at the same time, the same people are saying, you as a Titan fan are an idiot if you wanted them to lose yesterday. No, look, I'm not saying the coaches should try to lose or the players should try to lose. Their interest in the future of the football team is different than my interest in the future of the football team. I will still be rooting for the Titans 5 years from now. The coaches and the players probably won't be. That's just a reality. It's like Eric Dickerson said to Jeff Fisher when they got into it. You're just a coach. But I'll always be Eric Dickerson of the Los Angeles Rams. And I feel that same way. I will always be a fan of the Tennessee Titans. And I'm rooting for them now. But I know you're not going to get any good if you take guards in the first round, if you take defensive tackles that don't pressure the quarterback in the second round, if you give chance after chance after chance to overweight, out of shape, injured receivers when the guy who catches everything that's thrown his way is just sitting there rotting on the bench. So I see the value in what a win means for the Titans and what a loss means for the Titans. Instead, it's, hey, fans, you're an idiot if you wanted them to lose. Anybody that says that can go F off. I'm just going to tell it like it is. Again, I'm not saying the players should go out there and try not to win or the coaches should go out there and try not to win. And if I owned the team, I wouldn't go to the players and the coaches and say, hey, we want to lose, because you can't do that. But the idea that there was some tangible benefit to winning the game yesterday, you'd have a hard time convincing me of that. Give me a break. Well, the players The players put so much in, and for the players to be rewarded with that was just rewarded with that. What exactly is this reward that the players get? This is not like everybody's calling their phones because they went crazy on Sunday Night Football. The entire country saw it, and everybody's like, wow, you're so good. You beat the worst team in the NFL in overtime in a game that nobody watched. Way to go. I don't. Did you get anything last year when you played a similar meaningless football game against Carolina and you beat them by a touchdown? Did you get anything out of that? Did Jalen Duncan, who started at left tackle in that game, did he learn how to win? Plus, what do I care what the players get out of it or what the coaches get out of it? Do they care what I get out of it? I don't think so. And they don't care about the fans. And their job's not to care about the fans. You worry about the fans, it'll keep you from doing your actual job. But again, I'm not worried about the players. I'm not worried about the coaches. So what makes me an idiot for not wanting to pick ninth? What makes me an idiot for not wanting this team to win 5 games this year to justify the return of Ran Carthon and Chad Brinker to running this organization right into the ground? You know what I actually think is stupid? What I actually think is disingenuous? What I actually think shows me how little you actually know about reality and what goes on in the NFL? The people that applaud the Titans for everything that they do. Wow. A GM texted Ran Carthon and said that was a good pick on Peter Skoronski. Wow. The people that celebrate trades for 6th-round draft picks. Wow. The people that get excited because they hear somebody in a press conference say something along the lines of, well, my focus is to come here to Tennessee and to play the best I can play and for us to win a lot of games. And they say, wow. They put the team president on and he says, we thought we had a good process with Brian Callahan when we hired him, but we know we crushed this hire. Meanwhile, I'm watching Brian Callahan break down in tears because they beat the worst team by 3 points again in OT. To me, the blind faith in Titanism is what makes you an idiot. If everything the team does is good and it lands you with the worst team in the NFL, or in this case, arguably the worst team in the NFL, right there, a razor's edge, maybe you should stop believing and maybe you should stop reciting the things that are coming out of that building that aren't true. I learned a long time ago, hey man, if you don't believe in something, stand by it. That's why this entire offseason, when I kept peppering the Titans about right tackle, and they kept telling me, no, Jared Nicholas Petit-Ferrer, a.k.a.
PT.
He can do it. I never believed that. When everyone kept telling me that it was Peter Skoronski's appendectomy that was the problem with his inability to pass protect, I didn't believe it. Because I actually have eyes, and I use them. I'm not a member of a cult. And deep down inside, I'm not even sure these people are either. But when you're paid by the Titans, when you're friends with the Titans, when you want interviews all the time with the Titans, when you want to be liked, you'll say things that are not true. You might even get roped into believing things that are not true. But again, to look at a fan base that it wasn't too long ago that the Titans were good. Like it was 2 years ago. This time 2 years ago, you were in first place. You'd been to the playoffs 3 years in a row and 4 out of the last 5. And that wasn't good enough. But now I'm supposed to be told, hey, you're an idiot if you aren't happy about the fact that this team is A, going nowhere, and B, hurting themselves to get out of the nowhere hole that they've dug for themselves. When I hear things like that are so disingenuous and so detached from reality, all I can think about is how insulted this fan base should feel by the people that work for that team and tell you things that are not true, that treat you like you're stupid. And this goes back to Rand last week saying the ball didn't bounce their way in a game in which they gave up 52 points. So I'm sorry, but I can only handle enough when I hear people getting lied to or people getting finger wagged about the idea that, I'd rather my team not win a meaningless game so that my team can get better players, so that one day we can actually have a football team that is worth watching, worth going to see, and worth talking about. Didn't everybody want to be the Bengals? Remember, you hired Brian Callahan. We wanted to be the Bengals. And I guarantee you that these people, I say people, but I'm really talking about one person. But I guarantee you, when Brian Callahan got hired, they were talking about, well, he's going to bring the Bengals offense in here. They have. That's why they threw it 4 times from the 1-yard line. You want to know why you're not the Bengals? You want to know what the Bengals did? You want to know the culture the Bengals built? You want to know what made the Bengals so good? You want to know what sucking and drafting Joe Burrow? That's what made the Bengals good. I saw Joe Burrow's press conference yesterday. Joe Burrow was talking about the fact that, hey, we got to stop celebrating this win over the Raiders because we got the Ravens on Thursday night. We need to focus on that. Joe Burrow was talking about 10 gets you in. We need to win 7 of the next 9. We can do it. Joe Burrow was talking about, hey, the rookies out there need to realize this ain't college anymore. It's time to pick it up. Joe Burrow's the coach of that team. You want to be the Bengals? You got to get Joe Burrow. But instead, saying that and acknowledging reality, I guess makes you stupid. According to somebody who has no skin in the game, didn't play for the Titans, and quite frankly, wasn't even all that good themselves. Just think it's disrespectful. I just think, again, whether it's Rand Carthon's bull crap or whether it's the Rand boohoo crowd, the Rand club, whether it's there, whatever. It's so disingenuous. It's so indefensible. And I think it's really insulting to what Titan fans have been through. That's why I'm always nervous when I hear out-of-town people talk about that, because they don't know. When I hear people who played for the Pittsburgh Steelers talk about the Titans, like, what do they know? But I mean, again, this idea that you're idiots because you wanted them to lose, give me a break. If you're somebody that said, let Rand cook, if you're somebody that after the first day of the draft, grunted into a microphone like, yeah, I like the physicality, whatever it may be, maybe you're the idiot. Don't disrespect these fans like that. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025 here on the program. And I would just like to know, what was the tangible benefit of winning yesterday? Somebody explain that to me. We'll do it next. Stillman & Company, 1025 The Game.
Hasty in on first down. May rolling, throwing back. Down the field, intercepted. The second for Amani Hooker ends the ball game. Amani Hooker has become Mr. Interception for Tennessee this year. And Drake May did everything he could, but Tennessee wins.
I mean, I love Jason Benetti, who called the game. Drake May did not do everything he could. He turned the ball over 3 times. Like, what? He did everything he could. And I like Drake May. I mean, I think that kid's got some chutzpah. I think he's got some talent. He's athletic. He's got a good arm. He's big. Like, I like Drake May. I do. But he did everything he could. Come on now. Phone line driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com. And I asked this question because, again, Titan fans are being shamed by the Sunshine Pumpers who told us the Titans are going to be good this year and said, let Rand cook. And they say that you're an idiot if you are upset that the Titans won yesterday. Well, I guess I'm an idiot because I am definitely upset that if the draft were to be held today, you'd be picking 9th and not 1st. So give me a tangible benefit. Somebody texted into the text line. They said, you know, last year you were happy about winning a meaningless game, and now you're not. Make up your mind. Last year you had a young quarterback. And the most important thing for young quarterbacks are success and confidence. When Will Levis goes on the road to Miami and pulls a comeback out of his rear end at the end of the game, that gives everybody confidence in a young quarterback. I don't think Washington is going to win the Super Bowl this year, but I guarantee you their confidence in Jaden Daniels is something they're going to be able to build their organization around. So last year there was a benefit of confidence in a young quarterback. Well, you won yesterday with a backup who's not even signed for next year. So what's the benefit in that? Michael's been waiting patiently. He's up next here on the program. Michael, thank you for calling. Go ahead.
Thank you. You just got me. I was going to say that. I actually agree with you. People should be, you don't want to see your team lose. I get it. But, that's it. The tangible benefit is if you have a young quarterback and you're trying to progress and see what you got. Now, in my opinion, does that go to more of the roster? Yeah, you do want to see what guys can do in those situations. And over time, guys that are fighting for another contract next year, a second, that O-line, somebody you want to see emerge. So I do think there's tangible benefit across the board as far as, are they preparing the same way, working the same way in these situations? But not a lot if you don't have your quarterback playing, to your point.
I mean, everybody's already told me that all the previous draft classes, thank you for the call. Everybody's already told me that all the previous draft classes sucked and they were all John Robinson's fault except for last year, which was Mike Vrabel's fault, which is convenient because he's not here either. So it's not like they have young players that they can put in there and like, hey, let's see what they can do. They did that with the quarterback. He's terrible. They did that with the right tackle. He's terrible. We know the left tackle's got some talent. We know the guard is a guard. But it's, again, yesterday, it's not like the young running back went out there and became Derrick Henry. There's no young talent on this team that matters. I mean, I guess there's one corner who, again, everybody has gotten their panties moist over this young corner thinking that he's all of a sudden going to be Darrelle Revis. And he went out there yesterday, dropped an interception, got called for pass interference. Like, he's a backup. That's what I'm supposed to be excited about this year? Cameron says in the text line, it's so insulting when the media in town rip people for wanting us to tank when everyone, including those exact same media members, know the only way to get better is to tank and to draft game-changing players. That means they're either straight up lying to our faces or think that everyone listening to them is too stupid to know better. Either that or they themselves are too stupid to know better, and I wouldn't rule that out either. Here's my thing. When it comes to, again, this whole idea of, fans, you shouldn't want this team to lose. You shouldn't want this team to tank. Then you should have been against trading Ernest Jones and DeAndre Hopkins. If you are actually desiring this team to win, then you should rip them for trading Hopkins and Jones. But I highly doubt that's what they did. Ian, last year when the team was 2-4, Did I not reference the fact that, hey, they were 2-4 in 2019 and turned it around and went to the AFC title game, and they still had Henry and they still had Tannehill and they still had kind of a solid number of the core group of guys that were a part of that, including the coach. Did I not reference that at 2-4 last year?
I think that sounds right.
And did I not get upset when they traded away Kevin Byard?
I don't think you were overly upset, although the return was pretty weak.
I was very upset that Mike Vrabel was waving the white flag. Did I not adamantly argue, do not trade Derrick Henry? And did I not support the fact that they didn't trade Derrick Henry?
I think you wanted to keep Henry.
I did, because I thought that team could still win. I thought that team could still figure it out with veteran players and have a shot. And again, this is the NFL, and you never know. This team is not that team. That team last year, even though they were bad, if they had rolled with Ryan Tannehill for the entire year, they won 7 games. If they had rolled with Tannehill for the entire year, they probably would have won 8. That team was not close to being the worst team in the NFL. This team is, again, an overtime field goal away from being the worst team in the league. There's no tangible benefit here. So last year when I thought they could win, I argued don't trade the safety, don't trade the running back, unless you get an offer that is so over the top that it knocks your socks off. I wouldn't say a 5th rounder for DeAndre Hopkins is necessarily knocking your socks off. So you can't have it both ways. You can't say, well, I think that they should trade DeAndre and trade Ernest Jones and trade Arden Key tomorrow and trade. I don't think you can say that and then say, but you should root for them to win. Why? The season's over. You're conceding the season is over when you say, well, we're probably better off trading away Ernest Jones, who might be one of our 3 or 4 best defensive players. We're probably better off doing that just so we can get a 4th round pick. Like, you see what I'm saying? But I don't think that those people that wag the finger at the fans that are like me that say there's no tangible benefit of winning the game yesterday, I don't think those people were sitting there ripping the Titans for trading away DeAndre Hopkins and Ernest Jones. Again, even when it came out, after the season was over, and it's so easy when you know how a story ends to determine what it is or isn't. It's like comparing this team to 2014. The worst Titans team ever that went 2-14 with Ken Whisenhunt as the coach. If I were to ask you which team's worse, you would say that team because you know how that story ends. It's easy to say, well, they should have gotten a 4th round pick for Derrick Henry last year. They should have made the trade with the Ravens because they ended up not winning. They won 7 games or whatever, or 6 games. So they should have blah, blah, blah. It's easy to say that now because you know what the end result is. You don't know that, though, at that time. At that time, I was not ready to give up on the season. So I look at it, and I'm like, it's a good thing they didn't trade Derrick Henry or DeAndre Hopkins last year. They shouldn't have traded Kevin Byard, by my estimation, where they were at that moment in time. But I'm consistent. When I thought they had a chance, I said don't sell. This year, I commended them. I think that they got the best they could for Hopkins, and I think they got better than I thought they could for Jones, and I'm not upset about it, but that's because I'm okay with losing. That's because I am resigned to the fact that this team is going nowhere, and it's not going to change. And so, again, I just don't think you can have it both ways, and yet I think that there's a lot of people that want to have it both ways because that's what they think their friends at the team want them to believe. Maybe it's what the team wants. I don't know. Somebody texted into the text line today and said that apparently, and I didn't hear this, but apparently Mike Keith asked Brian Callahan a question, according to a texter, and I didn't hear it, but apparently Mike Keith asked Brian Callahan about the last play in regulation, and that Brian Callahan was like, come on, Mike, let me enjoy the win. Oh, great. Unbelievable. 615-737-1025. One texter says, my intelligence was insulted yesterday by D. Mason Chris on the award-winning pregame show. Ian, I know you didn't listen to the pregame show yesterday.
A little bit, off and on, yeah.
You did?
Yeah, some.
Did you hear our ball didn't bounce their way argument?
Was that at the beginning of the show?
Yes.
Yes, I did hear some of it. Yeah.
All I was asking them to do was to read the quote because they were like, it was a figure of speech. Rand didn't mean the ball didn't bounce their way. And the quote literally was like, yeah, the ball's not round. It didn't bounce our way. We fumbled the ball today and didn't get it back. And they fumbled the ball and did get it back. So if you change that, then it changes. I'm like, he's literally talking about the ball. I'm like, read the quote. Just read it verbatim. And they wouldn't do it. They wouldn't do it. They were like, nah, it's a figure of speech. It's like having evidence and saying, like, is this the evidence of you stealing all the TVs from the Target? It's like, no. But it looks like it that's what it was like yesterday on the pregame show. Oh, my goodness. 615-737-1025. I'm not mad at Brian Callahan, and I'm not going to rip on Brian Callahan. But there is something Brian Callahan said yesterday that I looked at him, not the tears, but there is something that he said yesterday. I looked at him and I said, bro, come on now. We'll get to that next. Stillman & Company on 102.5 The Game.
It's everything that we want to be about, just the program itself, how we want to look, how our team looks. We've had moments of really resilient play, but this was a really, really resilient performance by our guys.
For May, he wants the football. It's down and loose, and eventually the battle continues. Brown says the Titans have it.
Give up a ball at the last second to tie the game and have to go to overtime and then to respond. I thought we did a good job, really for the first time all year, of really complimenting each other when something happened. If something bad happened, we picked them up.
Touchdown, Westbrook Akine. The second for Monty Hooker ends the ball game.
Look at me. I needed it bad, man. It was, yeah, needed it.
How can he not be happy for Brian Callahan? Busting out some tears after the game. Congratulations, coach. You beat the worst team in the NFL at home in overtime. Way to go, coach. I promise I'm not making fun. I promise. So I don't have a problem with Brian Callahan shedding some tears yesterday after the game. I think there were a lot of people that were pretty upset about it. That they wasn't manly, that I don't have a problem with that. I get it. Brian Callahan is a feels guy. He's a positive person. He's wants the best out of everybody. He's a good man. I keep saying that over and over and over again. That didn't bother me. Sure, it bothered some of you, but it didn't bother me. Here's what bothered me. Yesterday, Brian Callahan was asked about the performance of special teams after the game was over, and I just personally thought the Titans' special teams were atrocious. They couldn't get lined up for a kickoff to begin the game. They can't field punts. They don't return punts. They gave up 2 massive returns, including one at the end of the game. I mean, the punter, they take a delay of game, move it back. He bangs the ball out of the end zone. Other than the kicker and the snapper, I don't know what there is to like about special teams. It is a completely incompetent group. I do not think it is a talent thing. I got into an argument with Derek and Chris about this on the pregame show, where they said it's a problem with the talent on the roster. My point is there are tons of bad teams out there in the NFL. New England is a bad team, and yet they seem at least a little competent on special teams. This was Brian Callahan, though. His assumption or his reaction to how the special teams played yesterday after the game.
Special teams miscues again, some penalties, some big returns.
Yeah, the penalty was I didn't see the penalty. It was on the sideline of the gunner, and I didn't think it was when I saw it. But again, they see it and call it. And then they got the best returner in football right now, and I thought we did a pretty good job of bottling him up. He had a couple returns that got yardage, but at the end of the day, they weren't fatal, and we covered better today than we did last week. So we're looking for improvement.
Special teams good. And the penalty that they called, he's like, yeah, I didn't think it was a penalty. By the way, today he came back and said that he thought it was a penalty. But yesterday, he didn't think it was a penalty, and he thinks that massive return that they gave up at the end of the game that could have cost them the game. If New England goes for 2 and gets it, you lose the game because of that return. He thought, they have the best returner in football. It's kind of like when Will Levis threw a pick 6, and he said, well, their guy's one of the best corners in the league. So what are we supposed to do there? I think we can be positive about the Titans' win, even though I'm not. But you can still be positive about the Titans' win and be glad they gave it their all. And, they showed you something and yay and all of that. And still acknowledge that special teams was terrible again. I mean, I don't understand. Somebody help me understand this. Again, if we're talking about a competently run organization or a competently run operation with special teams, you have the game that you had at Detroit. If you're Colt Anderson, and again, I don't know Colt Anderson from a jar of Vicks, other than when Fox pans to him every time there's a mistake on special teams. And trust me, the Fox announcers, and I highly doubt, and I know Jason Benetti's a good man. I highly doubt Jason Benetti and Mark Schlereth have been keeping up with the Titans. They were very quick to talk about Colt Anderson's special teams. But when you had the week you had, where the head coach gets asked after the game, after you almost allow an NFL record for return yards, and the coach gets asked after the game, why are you still employed? And then on Monday, the coach gets asked, why are you still employed? And then on Thursday, you get bombarded with questions about your unit, so much so that you're like backtracking that would make the worst politician cringe. Wouldn't you make sure your guys are lined up for the opening kickoff? Wouldn't you have them lined up? Like, I'm serious. Like, wouldn't you? And they can't even do that right. Well, you know, that guy that was offside on the kickoff, he wasn't signed in time. Okay. You know, I mean, I remember when the Titans had good special teams for 15 years to start all of this. It wasn't oh my God, they couldn't get lined up. Last week it was they're allowing returns because they had to make an adjustment because they were getting too many punts blocked. And yet there are 31 other teams in the NFL that seem to be able to block for their punter and cover the punts. So, look, you and I may disagree about what happened yesterday with the win and that being a good thing versus a bad thing. I view it as a bad thing because I think this team needs to bottom out. I think they need the number one pick. And quite frankly, I think they need to fire the general manager and the president of football operations and start over. And you can look at it and say this is the beginning of something, and I'm happy for Brian Callahan, and I'm happy for the players, and that this team needs to win, and it was good for the fans to cheer for something, whatever. You can have that opinion. I don't share it, but you can have it. But even then, I think we have to share the idea that the special teams yesterday was still atrocious. And for some reason, it's like the Titans think that we're all stupid when they tell us, no, I thought the special teams were good. And not only that, Jaquan Jackson, I mean, we talked all about the ball bouncing their way and what it means and how, you know, oh, hey, if the ball had bounced to us, we would have beaten the Lions, who we lost by 38-2 or whatever. If the ball doesn't bounce back to Jaquan Jackson, you lose. If the ball doesn't bounce to whoever recovered the Arden Key strip sack, you probably don't score that touchdown right there. Ball bounced your way yesterday. And Jaquan Jackson yesterday, he can't field a punt. Cannot field a punt. And yet, Brian Callahan's going to tell us, no, special teams are good. Special teams are good.
Improvement. Looking for improvement.
The other thing that I am starting to be a little discouraged by, or trying to think of the right way to say this, dismissive of, is I hear this about the offensive line a lot. I have no idea if the offensive line's actually gotten better or not. Well, the offensive line didn't give up 18 sacks this week. Yeah, and the offensive line played the Patriots. Like in college football, for instance, when you play Florida one week and you give up 9 sacks, and you play Florida A&M the next week and you give up 0 sacks, do you think that your team improved, or do you just say, well, we played lesser competition? Because that's what happened here. The Patriots have the worst offensive line in the league. Of course, Landry and Simmons and Key are going to get pressure. Of course they're going to. Their offensive line's worse than yours. And we saw what they did in training camp the last 2 years to your offensive lines. Well, you know, it was an improvement in special teams that they didn't allow Khalif Raymond to, well, they're not as good as the Lions. That's why. Do you want to know why you had the number 1 defense and you were holding these teams and these games were close? Because you're playing backup quarterbacks. You're playing Joe Flacco and Scarbini, Malik Willis. Then you get Josh Allen and Jared Goff, and it's like, actually, you might not be very good. But that's just me. So this whole improvement thing, it's like, was it improvement, or did you get to play the homecoming team last week? 615-737-1025, more of your phones. Plus, there is one guy who I think is on the trade block, who I think wants to get traded and is playing like it. We'll get to that coming up next. Stillman and Company on 1025 The Game. Got to tell you about Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. I love Hiller. They take great care of my home. Anytime there's an issue, Hiller. They're the first people I call out there, and they can do the exact same for you. And Hiller's very popular Cash for the Holidays promotion is back. Be listening closely here because they're giving away cash for the holidays with select purchases. Get a $500 Visa gift card when you buy select new HVAC systems or a new whole home generator, or get a $250 Visa gift card when you buy a new tankless water heater. Bang! These deals are only available until the end of the year, so schedule today at happyhiller.com. That's Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. Proud supporters of the Preds, who won on Saturday, the Vols, who won on Saturday, and Vandy, who won on Saturday and is bowl eligible. Hiller, call the Happy Face Truck today.
Avery inactive today back there in the secondary as well. Pump fake for May. He wants the football. It's down and loose. And eventually the battle continues. Brown says the Titans have it. May got belted from the blind side. It's a turnover.
Just a great play. Look at the hoop that 49 Arden Key turns right here, tight, and then you don't sack the quarterback, sack the football. Go get that arm. It's not just about bringing the quarterback down. It's about sacking the football. Watch that arm right here. Bam, gets that hand down, pulls those arms apart. That ball comes out, and then it's a scramble. For that defense, we just talked about turnovers, creating takeaways. That's how you do it. Tennessee in business.
That was Arden Key's strip sack yesterday. I'd argue probably the biggest play of the game because New England was starting to move the ball. Drake May was starting to run the ball. You know, one thing Drake May does pretty well, and I don't know if this is like a trait or not, but there were a lot of instinctive moments where he was about to get hit, and then he just flips the ball right to the running back who then takes it up for 18 yards or whatever. And so Drake May was doing his thing, and it was a tied game, and you're starting to get later into the fourth quarter, and you hadn't really done much on offense. And then Arden Key comes out of nowhere and strip sacks the quarterback, and the ball bounces your way, and you get it, and now you're in position, and way to go. And Arden Key, who I had not heard from between weeks 2 of the 2023 season and week 7 of the 2024 season, Arden Key in the last 2 weeks has actually played like somebody who's worth something. And it seems to me like Arden Key is looking for his get-out-of-jail-free card. And the last 2 weeks he's played like it. Remember, when they traded DeAndre Hopkins and Ernest Jones, Arden Key did an interview, and he said, I could be next. And I kind of laughed out loud because I thought, yeah, I'll tell you what people want, pass rushers that don't rush the quarterback. But over the last 2 weeks, we've seen Arden Key get after that quarterback. So you tell me, is it all of a sudden because Arden Key's playing worse teams? I mean, the Lions, I think they're pretty good, and I think their left tackle's pretty good. Or is it because Arden Key has had a little extra incentive to play his tushy off to get to somewhere else? And by the way, it should be noted, Diana Rossini mentioned Arden Key in a piece about Arizona looking to add. Now, I believe Arizona added somebody from Denver who I've never heard of, so maybe they're out on Arden Key. But I think there may be a little bit of sentiment on Arden Key's part that he wants to get up out of here. And I can't blame him. And I'd love to see him traded. And I set my expectation price when it comes to Arden Key at a 5th rounder in 2026. So I don't think you'll get anything better than a 6th or a 7th this year. But I think you could get a 5th rounder in 2026 for a team that needs a pass rusher that misses out on all the other guys that have been dealt. Also, I heard Robbie and Joe again talking today about Landry. And I'm like, guys, nobody's trading for Landry. He's owed too much money. He's not that good. And he doesn't want to go anywhere. And you've got him under contract. And what you would get in return wouldn't match what you'd be giving up. But Arden Key, absolutely. Sell him off. I heard Derek today say, but if you let him go, you're still got to have a team that can compete this year. Screw it. Go call up Scarbini from the practice squad. Put him out there. Let's see what he can do. Jalen Harrell, let's put him in there. I think he kind of stinks, but hey, you never know till you try. That's what I would do. One texter says, my man Brian says, Jared, my man, speaking the truth. Thank you for saying what Titan fans are thinking. We've been beat up all day for not wanting this team to win because we, he says, are trash. Now, again, I don't think 100% of Titan fans feel that way. I don't. I think there are a lot of Titan fans out there who thought that winning yesterday was positive, that it made them feel good, that it was a belief that maybe, I heard people calling in yesterday, they were talking about, well, maybe Mason Rudolph could be the guy. I'm like, I don't know where you people get these kind of takes from, but okay. Okay, I guess so. Yeah, way to go. Whatever. So I don't think it's like, we as Titan fans are all thinking this. I do think there are a lot of Titan fans who are thinking this, that winning yesterday was a bad thing. And it's okay. It's okay to be able to say that. One texter says, when Vanderbilt, who consistently has less talent on paper against their opponents, are the more exciting football team to get behind right now, what does that say about the Titans? This isn't to discredit Vanderbilt. They've had a great year, but the Titans are dreadful. Well, let me say this. The reason Vanderbilt is entertaining, and I watched the Vandy game Saturday. Ian, did you watch the Vandy game Saturday?
Off and on.
I got into it. Like, I know that Ohio State and Penn State were playing at the same time. I did not pay attention to that. I was watching Vandy. And I got the YouTube TV with the 4 screens and everything else. And I was working out during the first half. And then the second half, I was watching the game. And I was like, no, I want the full 86 inches on Vanderbilt. I don't want to split the screens up. I don't want to. But the reason that Vanderbilt's entertaining to watch is because they got a quarterback. They got a quarterback that everybody believes in. I mean, and that quarterback you talk about, if he had Will Levis's injury, he'd say to Clark Lee, screw you, coach, I'm going in there. He wouldn't let them sit him. I mean, once the game was essentially over, once Vandy essentially went, they brought the backup quarterback in to run the ball because they didn't want Pavia out there anymore because he was, let me tell you, Pavia, I mean, he is worth watching. So when you say like, oh, well, Vandy has lesser talent, well, this is the NIL era, and Vandy's paying players. But the difference is Vandy's got a quarterback worth watching, and you've got Mason Rudolph. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Boy, I'll tell you, I said something yesterday, and Twitter got mad at me. Not only do I stand by it, but I almost double down on it. I believe it, and I'm not taking it back. We'll get to it next. Stillman and Company on 102.5 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. Predators tonight against the LA Kings. That's why we're live at Bridgestone Arena. So, Ian, were you rooting yesterday for the Titans to win?
Not particularly, no. Just
were you
kind
rooting
of
for them to lose?
No, not really.
I was rooting for them to lose.
I was just a neutral observer this week.
Now, let me say this. When push comes to shove at the end of the year, week 17, 18, whatever the hell you want to call it, do you think we will regret that the Titans won this game against the New England Patriots?
It's possible.
But do you think it, yes or no?
No.
Oh, I think we'll regret it. And if I'm wrong, then I'm wrong, and I'll admit it. But I think we'll regret it. I think that Patriot team is really bad. I mean, really, really bad. So yesterday, Twitter got mad at me because after the game was over, I said, wow, one of the saddest wins in Titans history. And people got mad. You're so negative, Jared. Everything you hate. One guy tweeted me and said, I bet if we won the Super Bowl, that you would be going crazy, freaking out about our backup quarterback and how he didn't get enough reps. And let me just say this. First of all, let's win the Super Bowl and then see what my reaction is. I don't know what my reaction on the program. I am a natural skeptic. I mean, I do worry that if the Titans win the Super Bowl, I will become the dog who caught the car. That then the Titans will screw everything up and I won't be upset about it. You know, it's like the Atlanta Braves. They won the World Series in 2021. And ever since they've won the World Series, even when they lose in the playoffs, I'm like, well, you know, it's tough. Can't be upset about it. Everybody got hurt this year. It's okay. And eventually that'll wear off. But right now it probably hasn't. So again, let's worry about what my reaction is going to be when they win the Super Bowl after they win the Super Bowl. Because I don't even know how I'll react then. But everybody was saying, you're too negative. You can't say anything positive about this team. You can't look at a win like this and say that it's positive, and you can't, and this. Guys, do we really have to get in our feels about a win against a terrible team at home in overtime where legitimately you can make the argument that the reason that you won is because the ball bounced your way? If we can make the argument, and I don't think you can, and I never would, but if we're going to make the argument that you lose all these games because the ball didn't bounce your way, it's hard not to look at yesterday's game against a team that picked third in the draft last year, a team that if the draft were held today would be picking number one, a team whose offensive line is ranked 32nd in the NFL, and your offensive line is ranked 31st. So they're saying their offensive line, Pro Football Focus is saying, is worse than your offensive line. And you had to beat them at home in overtime by the skin of your ass with 3 fumbles that bounced your way. If we can't look at that and be honest, I can't help you. If everything has to be positive all the time, I can't help you. People say, you always look for something wrong with the Titans. You're always negative about the Titans. Yeah, I was negative this offseason when I heard Chad Brinker start talking about how great his analyticscancer.com model was going to be for injury prevention, only to see both corners that the Titans spent a boatload of money on in free agency on the bench every Sunday. Now the starting center's out. They paid a fortune for him. With the quarterback hasn't played in 3 weeks. What happened to my injury.com model? The one that you guys said, oh, we're on the forefront of analytics now. Was I being negative or was I right? When I kept saying this team doesn't have a right tackle and I kept telling the right tackle story, was I wrong? Was I being negative or was I right? Again, I can't, I'm not in the business. And there is a business, and it's very lucrative. I'm not in the business of making you feel better about your football team. I'm not your therapist. I'm not the team's broadcaster. I'm not any of those things. I call it like I see it. I feel like an umpire. If the ball crosses the plate, it's a strike. If it doesn't, it's a ball. And that's all I'm doing. And for some reason, whether it's because people are nicer than me, whether it's because people have better relationships with people that coach or play or run the team or whatever than me, whether it's because people are paid by the team or they want to be in the team's good graces or they want to, whatever it may be. They might be more optimistic than me. They might be. I'm just telling it how it is. And if you can't look at what happened yesterday and see the truth, again, what did you build off of this win yesterday? Was it a good launching step forward for your young quarterback that some of you still think that there's a chance can be successful? No, he didn't play. Did it get you closer in the standings to the playoffs? You're 2-6. This is the worst team you'll play this year. And it took overtime at home in order to beat them. And look, I love winning football games. I love doing the radio show when the teams win. You don't think that 2019 run wasn't fun as hell for me? I mean, what's funny is, again, the kind of conversations we have when they're good, as crazy as this sounds. I was talking about this on the pregame show with Chris and Derek. When the Titans are good, you know what conversations we have? We have, what does the defense have to do this week to pull out a big win? Or what do we think about the game plan? You know, were they giving the ball to Derrick Henry too much? Was this a good idea by the coach? That's what we do when they're good. When they're bad, it's an argument over whether or not winning is a good thing. That's a sad place to be. Again, is that negative or is that the truth? Because I think there's a big difference between negativity and the truth. But it's hard to argue that with the Tennessee Titans, since the day Amy Adams Strunk fired John Robinson, which to me was the genesis of all of this. Some of you will go further back and say the A.J. Brown trade, but that team was 7-3, even after they traded away A.J. Brown. And nobody's has ever explained that to me, how trading away A.J. Brown is the reason that this team sucks, but wasn't the reason that at 7-3 that team didn't suck. So I've never understood that. But ever since they fired John Robinson, it's been crap, 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 crap. With a nice little sunshine light lit on Will Levis's Atlanta and Miami performances. That's not negativity. That's just the truth. Again, let's call it how we see it. If it's over the plate, it's a strike. If it's not, it's a ball. And I've always been that way. This team's awful. That Patriots team that you beat yesterday, awful. It is what it is. I'll never forget. The Mike Mularkey Titans went on the road against Cleveland. They won a game in overtime. And that Cleveland team was that Cleveland when they were 0-17 or whatever it was. And I remember coming on the air freaking out about how it had to be overtime in order to win. And the old man was like, you don't understand the NFL and you don't understand how hard it is to win and you don't. And I got it. That's going to happen. Even when you're a good team, you're going to eke out close wins against bad teams. But this isn't a good team. This isn't like, yeah, the Titans didn't have their best and they played okay and they'll figure it. No. This was a bad team playing a bad team, and you just happened to not be the worst team yesterday. Again, the ball bounced your way. Congrats on the win. But I think there's like this cult of people that want to sell me that this game yesterday had some sort of hidden meaning, that there was something there that was a tangible benefit. There was something about what happened yesterday for the Tennessee Titans, that it was the belief in the coach in his process, that it showed that this team can do it, all these things. Like I feel like everyone's trying to pretend that there was something that happened yesterday that was more than just you beat an awful team. Congratulations. Woo! It reminds me of when I was in AP English as a senior in high school. Every single Virginia Woolf novel we had was, what is the hidden meaning here? What is the irony here? What is Virginia Woolf trying to get at? In Shakespeare, it's, what does this tell us about King Lear? And I'm sitting there at 17 years old who didn't really read all the book. That's like, I mean, I don't know what. Like, okay, what's the hidden meaning? Tell me. There was no hidden meaning yesterday. You beat a bad team. Tangibly, it hurts you in the draft standings. But as far as like that being negative, it's not negative. That's just the truth. And what I've learned is that there will always be a place for people to hear things that they want to hear, regardless of whether or not they're true. I would love to wake up every morning and hear Louisville won, the Braves won, the Titans won, the Predators won. I would love to wake up to that every single morning. But not unless it actually happened. And yet I think there's a big swath of you out there that are the opposite. That even if it didn't happen, you want to hear that it did. And that's the Let Rand Cook crew. It's not negativity. Mentioning that you don't have a right tackle and that it's going to be a problem, that's not negativity. That's the truth. And I can't help you if you're looking for something other than the truth. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number on the program, 615-737-1025. There's one thing that people are getting on Brian Callahan for. I'm not getting on Brian Callahan for it. We'll do it next. Stillman & Company, 1025 The Game.
It's everything that we want to be about, just the program itself, how we want to look, how our team looks. We've had moments of really resilient play, but this was a really, really resilient performance by our guys.
For May, he lost the football. It's down and loose, and eventually the battle continues. Brown says the Titans have it.
Give up a ball at the last second to tie the game and have to go to overtime and then to respond. I thought we did a good job, really for the first time all year, really complimenting each other when something happened. If something bad happened, we picked them up.
Touchdown, Westbrook Akine. The second for Money Hooker ends the ball game.
Look at me. I needed it bad, man. It was, yeah, needed it.
He needed it bad. Oh, he needed it bad. And if you heard in that last cut right there, Brian Callahan, after the game yesterday, asked how bad he needs it. He needed that win against that horrible Patriot team in overtime. Here's what he said.
Just how badly did you guys need this today?
Look at me. I needed it bad, man. It was, yeah, we needed it.
Yeah, he needed it. I mean, he was tearing up. He was, and a lot of people have gotten on Brian Callahan for that. Even in the YouTube chat, the text line, I think somebody called in. They were saying, I mean, seriously, the coach is going to cry about that. Let me say this. I am not going to get on Brian Callahan about this. I'm not. And I'm going to tell you why. Because while I don't necessarily care about what the coaches go through, I don't necessarily care about what the players go through. When the team stinks, that's when everybody says things like, hey, these guys have families too. Yeah, and their families don't have to worry about how they're going to pay for college because they're making $6 million a year. Life's a two-way street. But at the same time, I understand how Brian Callahan has had to deal with just nothing but crap, some of which was his own doing for the first 2 months of this football season, to finally have a moment where he doesn't have to explain to the fans or the media or the owner why they're not winning. And again, I don't know what's going on behind the scenes there. I think it was very telling that Brian Callahan said last week when he was asked about Amy Adams-Strunk's patience, and he said, you can only be so patient. It was almost an acknowledgement of, hey, we got to start picking it up around here. And I don't know if that means that Amy's been tougher on them, and I'm not assuming that, but it wasn't lost on me that he said that. And when you're the head coach, you're responsible for all these guys. Like every single one of those guys. There are 30 people probably that are employed by this team because of you. And if you get fired because you stink, then they all get fired. Because as we know, a new coach is going to want to bring his own guys in. And again, there's the reputation, and I think there's the belief. And it wouldn't surprise me if Brian Callahan was having doubts about whether or not he could coach in the NFL. I read Bill Walsh's book, The Score Takes Care of Itself. And in it, Bill Walsh told a story about how early in his tenure in San Francisco, they were flying back from a Monday night football game that they lost on the road against Don Shula and the Dolphins. And they made a field goal, but there was a penalty on the play, and it pushed them back, and they had to kick it again, and they missed it. And they're flying back from Miami to San Francisco, and he's sitting, Bill Walsh, again, one of the greatest coaches who ever lived, he's sitting in the first seat of the plane, and he's in tears because he didn't think he could coach in the NFL. Obviously, we know that there was a renaissance ahead for Bill Walsh. Maybe there is for Brian Callahan, I don't know. I'm also not one of these guys that doesn't think that grown men don't cry. Like, I'm not one of these guys that's like, grown men don't show tears. Emotions are real. And in football, they're very high. I mean, do you take your job performance seriously? So I don't have a problem with that. Some people will, I don't. The thing that I appreciate about Brian Callahan, and here's where I feel bad about Brian Callahan, because somebody will have heard me say that I'm okay with firing the coach at the end of the year, which is true. But my thing is, it's not really about Brian Callahan. It's about the business of the situation. We always hear this stuff all the time. People will say, it's business and there are hard decisions to make. And then you fire a coach who's in his 5th year. Dennis Allen getting fired today by the Saints, that's not a hard decision to make. Firing a coach after 1 year, that can be a tough decision to make, especially if you think that the coach is a good guy, which I think this guy is a great guy. I do. And Brian Callahan is a great guy. My belief is the Titans need to clean house and they need better decision makers. If you clean house and you go get better decision makers, you hire a general manager and you want to set the general manager up for success, I don't believe in telling the general manager, you have to work with this coach. That's how you end up with Rand Carthon. Telling somebody, hey, you have to have this coach. I don't want that. Which means that the next guy would get to make the choice on Brian Callahan. And in my experience, most of these guys, when they have a choice of, do you want the guy who's already here, or do you want your own guy, is going to choose that they want their own guy. I also think Brian Callahan is aware that Amy's kind of a loose cannon. And that if Rand and Chad go, the last thing she's probably going to do is what she did the last time, which is force a general manager to work with a coach. So I understand why Brian Callahan's in tears. I get it. I mean, he got peppered all last week about, why is this bozo special teams coach still employed? You think he enjoyed that? So I'm not going to get on Brian Callahan for the tears. In fact, I think that's just kind of how he is. Like, I think he's a good guy. I think he wears his emotions on his sleeve. I think he truly wants the best for those players. And I mean, again, I want the best for him, but the results are the results, man. Now, it is kind of embarrassing at the same time. Again, I'm not going to get on him for it, but it is a little embarrassing at the same time. They're like, dude, you beat the Patriots in overtime. Like, it wasn't like you won the championship. Again, speaking of Bill Walsh, when Brent Musburger's interviewing him in the locker room and he says, hey, is this the last game you've ever coached in the NFL? And Brent Musburger and Bill Walsh starts tearing up. That's a little different. But I understand where it's coming from. This is a hard job. Floyd used to always tell me one of his Bud Grantisms was, coaching in the NFL is the best job in the world when you win. With the assumption being that it's miserable when you lose. So I'm happy for Brian Callahan. I'm happy for the players. Again, I don't want them to win, but I don't think that they should try not to win, so good for them. It's not good for us, but good for them. 615-737-1025. One texter into the text line says, your show and negativity are killing your show. Well, we got the ratings back last week. I don't think that's the case. New topics, please. Management and ball didn't bounce our way. I can't hear this for the next 10 weeks. I just told you the ball bounced your way yesterday. Arden Key sacked Drake May. Ramadre Stevenson was right there. He tried to jump on the ball. He couldn't jump on the ball. You jumped on the ball. There was a pile. You got it. Touchdown Titans was a result of that turnover. That ball bounced your way. You punted the ball to Jaquan Jackson. He fumbled it because apparently you don't have returners that can catch and you don't have a coach who knows who can catch and who can't or whatever. And he fumbled the punt, but they recovered it because the ball bounced your way. You want to tell me what happened? That's what happened yesterday. Text said, you're not calling balls and strikes. You have your own agenda and will not let it go. First of all, my agenda is to how to make the Titans good. That's what I care about. I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but when you're good and you win, you don't hear a lot of flack from me. Jeffrey Simmons, who gets a ton of flack from me on this program because he doesn't really hit the quarterback, got a game ball today from me because he hit the quarterback. It's not an agenda. If it is an agenda, it's an agenda on how to win. Again, you think it was my agenda to say, hey, you guys don't have a right tackle. What are you going to do at right tackle? What are you going to do at right tackle? What are you going to do at right tackle? You think that was my agenda? You think I went crazy because they drafted a guard 11th? Because instead of the obvious, which is I went crazy about it because good teams don't draft guards with the 11th pick. You think it's an agenda because, I just want to crap on the Titans? Again, I like players that are good. I'm sorry. We're going to talk about it's my fault. You got an agenda. Yeah, an agenda to win, which apparently not everybody has. One texter in the text line says, eventually people will realize, Jared, that you're actually Nostradamus and will make t-shirts saying Jared Stillman was right. Unfortunately, that won't come from the cult of toxic positivity. And he spells it C-U-L-T. We may have to spell the Titans cult of toxic positivity C-O-L-T for Colt Anderson. More your phones, 615-737-1025 plus. I already apologized today to the Titans and Brian Callahan because I thought they were milking the Will Levis injury, and I figured they'd put him back in there for the Patriot game so he could get his confidence back, and they didn't, which proved that Levis is truly hurt. Coming up next, I've already apologized. Somebody else is owed an apology. We'll do it next, and your phones, Stillman and Company, 1025-1063 The Game.
4:40 to go. Tennessee driving. 3rd and goal. Mason Rudolph. Enough time to scan and throw. End zone touchdown. Westbrook Akine, his 4th straight game with a score, and the Titans lead.
Well, you know what? He's going to come across here, and then he's going to work himself back out when Mason Rudolph comes off the front side. So the front side is where they're trying to go. Then you see him just wrap back around here to Rudolph, and Rudolph making a nice throw to the outside. That's where you're getting that coverage away from Gonzalez on the other side, who is locked up with Calvin Ridley.
NWI, who else? By the way, I've never felt more right than I was during training camp when the Titans kept saying, oh, Treylon Burks, DeAndre Hopkins is hurt, so we're going to see Treylon Burks. And remember when they signed Tyler Boyd and Brian Callahan got up there and was like, Treylon is going to have a role on our team. You know, he ran the fastest according to the GPS, and he ran the most miles, and he did the – I'm like, that's great. You guys can pump as much sunshine up my ass as you want on Treylon Burks. I don't care. I'd much rather trust NWI. And I kept saying this during training camp. I'm like, okay, DeAndre's down. Chicago's in 4 weeks. It's a 4 to 6 week injury. Who knows who's going to play? I said this. I go, give Burks a shot. But once you realize that Burks sucks, then take him out and put NWI in. And everybody told me I was crazy. And I kept saying to people, if you had to bet your house on productivity between Treylon Burks or NWI, who would you bet your house on? And every single media person at camp said NWI. Because NWI just produces. It's hilarious to me. Have you guys realized that Calvin Ridley can't catch? You know, one of the things that we were really worried about when we did the free agency board and Ridley was on it was the fact that Calvin Ridley dropped the football. Dropped it 8% of the time last year, including against the Titans in a must-win game for Jacksonville to make the playoffs. Ridley dropped a touchdown from Trevor Lawrence right in the hands because he does that. And so I'm watching the Titans yesterday, and they're throwing the ball to Ridley, and it's a 50-50 chance Ridley's going to catch it or not. I'm watching him throw the ball to Chig, and the ball pops off his hands, and it goes right into the defender for an interception. And again, I've been out on Chig long enough, but some of you still believe that he actually belongs in the NFL as a starting tight end, which he does not. If I were the Titans, I'd be teaching Chig how to play special teams because Josh Wiley and Nick Vannett would be doing all the tight ending on my team, if that is a word. Tight ending. He would do all the tight ending. He'd be playing tight end. Whatever. And then there's NWI. 3rd down, who do they throw the ball to? NWI. In the red zone, who do they throw the ball to? NWI. It is not an accident that Nick Westbrook-Akine has caught a touchdown in 4 straight games. It is not an accident. But see, here's the problem with the Titans. And they've done this too at right tackle, where Dylan Radin should have been playing and Daniel Brunskill should have been playing right guard. The Titan coaches get too caught up in somebody's potential or talent. Evaluators are always going to want to play the guy who has more talent no matter what because they see the speed, they see the raw numbers, and they say, well, this guy has a first-round talent, this guy's not, so play the other guy. It's up to the coaches to look at a 7th-round Cortland Finnegan and say, yeah, he's better than some of these guys that we've taken higher in the draft, and then put him out there. It's the job of the coach to look at David Long Jr. constantly making plays and saying, I know we drafted Rashaan Evans in the 1st round, but he doesn't do that. And then playing David Long Jr. and not playing Rashaan Evans. This coaching staff, through 1 year, can't do it. They played Burks because of the potential. They've played PT at right tackle because of the potential. Duncan at right tackle because of the potential. This is a valuable lesson for everybody to learn in sports. Potential gets you fired. Or as Floyd used to say, potential is French for not good enough. You know what happened to the Predators last year? They realized that Tomasino and Parsonen really weren't very good. So they started playing guys like Michael McCarron and Mark Jankowski, career Scarbinis. But they were producing more, so they got to play. Now, Paul Kaharski owes Joe Rexrode an apology. I heard this morning on the Rex Rant. Ian, did you hear the Rex Rant this morning?
Yeah, I think I did.
So 3 or 4 years ago, so the offseason of 2020, which was the offseason of 2021, so 3.5 years ago, Joe Rexrode wrote a column, but it was more of a report. You know, I remember when I had that report on Aaron Rodgers buying a house in Nashville, and I remember saying that day, there's a difference between a reporting hat and a pundit's hat. There's analysis and reporting. But we hear so much of both nowadays that I totally understand why people conflate the two. Joe Rexrode wrote a report at The Athletic in which he had talked to a high-level source with the Titans. My guess is it was either Robinson or Vrabel. Probably Vrabel. But Joe talked to a high-level source at the Titans who told him, hey, if Corey Davis leaves in free agency, it's going to be okay because we think we'll be all right, and we have Nick Westbrook-Akine, which at that point in time, Nick Westbrook-Akine, I think, had caught one pass in the NFL. And so even I read that and was like, guffaw. Stick him out there? Really? But if you're a reporter, all a reporter can report is what they're told. Joe was told, hey, we think we'll be okay with NWI. That thing has morphed into, over the last 3 years, into basically being like, Joe is the one who believes in Nick Westbrook-Akine and nobody else does. And that's not really what happened. Now, if I'm Joe, run with it, take a victory lap, go do whatever. But as Joe put it today, Paul called on Joe to apologize for reporting what he was told. Again, I think it probably came from Vrabel, if I had to guess. And I have no inside sourcing on that, but I do know that Mike Vrabel had a direct line to Joe Rexrode at times. So I think there's something there. Not as direct as Paul, who would present something that Vrabel told him, like the T.R. Tart stuff, as a fact. But, again, Vrabel had a direct line to Joe. And I understand where Joe's coming from. Paul has called on Joe to apologize for writing that column. Again, a reporter's job is to report. Today, on the Rex Rant, Joe called on Paul to apologize. I think Paul has to apologize to Joe Rexrode for calling him out on his NWI column, which again was a report, and again, I think it probably came from Vrabel, which was a report that either came from Vrabel or Robinson. Joe is not writing about a source telling him something if it is Johnny in the cafeteria. And Paul knows how this works. I think he owes Joe an apology. Wednesday at 8 o'clock, I want to hear Paul Kaharski apologize to Joe Rexrode. But if Paul Kaharski does apologize, it will be the first apology that Paul Kaharski has ever made in his entire life. So we shall see. And let me say this about NWI. NWI he keeps getting better. Like, he is better than he was 2 years ago. And he's certainly better than he was as a rookie. And I saw him wearing the Honda Accord t-shirt, which is a nod to TD, calling him a Honda Accord. I am of the belief that if Nick Westbrook-Akine was on a team with a good quarterback, that he would be a guy that the big-name quarterback absolutely wears out. You know, Gabriel Davis went from Buffalo to Jacksonville, hasn't caught a pass. Why? Because Josh Allen ain't throwing him the ball anymore. How many guys did Tom Brady make superstars? David Givens and Troy Brown and Deion Branch and Wes Welker, who was a nobody in Miami. Julian Edelman was a 7th-round draft choice out of Scarbini Tech. They drafted him because he could return punts. And all of a sudden, he has a borderline Hall of Fame career. NWI, if NWI played on a team like that, I think that quarterback would absolutely wear him out. He is dependable. He gets open and he catches the ball. And he's getting better. And there are two guys on the Titans right now who I would go to and I would say, I want to sign you to a contract extension. NWI and Dylan Radins. Because the second you lose those guys, the second you have to go out and get another one. But I do think that Joe's owed an apology on NWI. Jeff texts into the text line and says, Jared, were you one of the naysayers who was down on NWI his first year? Because there were many. Yeah, I mean, I went to training camp for like 3 practices during COVID. He couldn't catch the ball, and then he did nothing but play special teams. Yeah, I wasn't sold that this guy was going to replace a 900-yard receiver. My big issue with NWI was never that he wasn't good or that he couldn't become good or that there wasn't. My issue with NWI was when Todd Downing would stick him in the game on running plays to block and then take him out of the game on passing plays. And it always felt like they were saying, hey, defense, we're running. But I felt like I could tell pretty quickly in that 22 season, again, when they started 7-3 and everybody wants to ignore that, they went to Green Bay, they beat the Packers on Thursday Night Football in Lambeau Field, and everybody wants to ignore that. I actually think that it was kind of a big deal that Tannehill and NWI had a good relationship. And I noticed it last year when I was kind of doing a breakdown of what Will Levis did well, and I kept noticing that he kept throwing the ball to 2 people, Hopkins and NWI. And I said, well, I mean, that must mean something. One texter says, hey, Jared, weren't you also initially down on Dylan Radins? Yeah, I called him a bust, and he was. They drafted him to play right tackle, and it took him 4 years. It's like the same conversation we have with Tavondre Sweat. Tavondre Sweat is not a bad player, but Tavondre Sweat's not worth the 38th pick. Radins will never be worth a second-round draft choice. Radins is worth $7 million a year to play right guard. And let me say this. This is the whole point of guards and where you draft them. I actually think right now Radins is better than Skoronski. And you took Skoronski with the 11th overall pick. That's the difference. 615-737-1025, Stillman and Company on a Titans Monday at 1025 again.
It's hockey night in Smashville.
Walk over to Yossi. His one-timer, he scores!
Bringing you the keys to victory and the latest storylines surrounding the Nashville Predators. This is Predators Game Day, now on Stillman and Company.
Stillman and Company Predators Game Day presented by TJ Anderson Homes of Benchmark Realty online at tjandersonhomes.com. Get your house seen, heard, and sold with TJ Anderson. Or in my case, get it bought. One way or another, who knows? That's TJ Anderson. Tonight, the LA Kings come to Bridgestone Arena. They're 6-3-3, good for 15 points. The Predators are 4-6-1, good for 9 points. I did go to the game on Saturday. Thought the Predators played hard. It wasn't their best game, but they did win 5-2 over the Colorado Avalanche, though half the players on the Avalanche, Ian, I had never heard of, who I saw out there on Saturday night.
Yeah.
Who the hell was that?
Never heard of him either.
I mean, it was like computer-generated players on Madden that I had never heard of, and then McKinnon and Makar and Rantanen and Middlestat and those guys. But tonight it's the LA Kings, and the Predators have only lost in regulation 4 times to the Kings in their last 29 meetings. And if you remember, it was on the road at LA. There was a big part of that early stretch they had when they got hot last year in February. Here's what head coach Andrew Burnett has to say about tonight's game.
I guess, maybe the Colton Sissons goal, I thought we did, but for the most part, we were pretty perimeter again. So it's something we're going to continue to work on and harp on, and needs to get better.
Needs to get in the middle with those slot shots. And I would agree. Though I do feel like the power play starting to come together a little bit. Stamkos had a goal the other night on the power play, which, he'd been knocking on the door there for a second. But this is a big stretch of games for the Predators. They got the Kings tonight, then they go on the road. They're going to D.C. tomorrow. Boy, D.C., that'll be a quiet place tomorrow. They go on the road to D.C. where they'll play Wednesday. They'll play at Florida on Thursday. And again, this is a big week. The Predators are 4 points out of a playoff spot. They have a game in hand. And again, Ian, when do you absolutely positively have to be in the playoffs?
Thanksgiving.
U.S. Thanksgiving is when you have got to be in the playoffs. So they've got ground to make up, and they got to do it against a Kings team that, once again, 6-3-3. They're not bad. They're 3-3-2 on the road, but they did lose in a shootout to Chicago, and Chicago's not very good. So at least keep that in mind. That's going to do it for us, and Max will be up next with the pregame show, and then Pete and Jay will have the call 7 o'clock for the puck drop right here at Bridgestone Arena on Star Wars night. Enjoy, Stillman.